Mr. Chairman, please proceed.
All right. Thank you for your patience. We'll start with the roll call. To my right.
Dominic Smirglino, alternate commissioner.
Ryan Condon, Commissioner.
Ian Ambrosi, Commissioner.
Commissioner. Robert Westland, Commissioner.
Call the vote, alternate commissioner.
Rick Schultz, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Sarah Stroud, Recording Secretary.
And Mr. Chairman, we have Barbara Schallenberg, Special Counsel tonight.
Okay. So before we start the public hearing portion of our meeting, we'll go to the general public participation. So that this is a time when anyone from the public that would like to address the commission on any issue that's not before the commission. So in other words, anything that's not listed on tonight's agenda, this would be the time to talk about any of those issues. So if there's anyone in the audience, please raise their hand. Anybody online like to address the commission in the general public participation period, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. We do have quite a few public hearings tonight. I'd like to ask everyone to be as brief as possible. First one, CCA 2020-02 is the regulation text amendment and zoning map amendment. This is continued from 6/1/23. 10 and 36 Main Street. The applicant.
Good evening, commission members. On behalf of the applicant, my name is Pawlowski. I'm a licensed civil engineer with Solely Engineering. This is located here in Monroe, 501 Main Street. We have not submitted any new material for this application. We are continued from last meeting, if you recall, waiting on a report from the local traffic authority. I believe County Planner Rick Schultz has spoken with them and has an update for you all.
Mr. Chairman, staff met with the police chief and the fire marshal. Upon reviewing the site development plan and the traffic impact study, it was recommended to the commission that a connector driveway be made to Victoria Drive. Now, as reported by the applicant, they are trying to pursue it. It has not been finalized. Tonight's application is the conceptual phase, but it is something that the police and fire feel very strongly. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So you're ready to close the hearing, I imagine. All right, so let's go to the commissioners for any questions before we close the hearing. Start on my right.
No questions.
No questions.
Still.
The concerns with the police department, the fire department. What about on the other side where the other development? To connect the property?
You're talking about on the Trumbull border?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are currently engaged with that applicant and their engineer, and we're actively working to connect the two properties. We're just discussing grading, and it should be pretty simple.
So you believe they're going to have a.
We'll definitely have pedestrian connectivity, and then we're just exploring driveways as well, but nothing is finalized at this time.
Okay.
We're working toward it.
So you want to close it now, or?
We would like to close the hearing now.
Department had concerns, so, or I guess with the
It's
traffic.
not the SCP, it's just the,
Right.
Correct. This is just the preliminary phase.
Yeah.
So we're actively trying to pursue that connection to Victoria Drive. But unfortunately, as we've all been through, is owned by another entity, so we're engaging with them, but we don't have a right to access that private drive as a map or private road. So.
Rick, could we require that or not?
I had a chance to talk to special counsel, and that is out of your purview insofar as that it's a private road.
Right.
Obviously, it's something that you got to take in consideration, and I know it is the consensus of this commission. So I know if you're going to act favorably on this phase, you're going to emphasize that very strongly.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mayne.
That's going to be a very busy area. I think you have 2 traffic lights going in.
One's already in place.
One's in place and one's going to be not too far away.
That's correct.
About 500 feet or so.
That's 700 feet.
What?
700 feet.
Thank you. Here's my concern. I think going into Victoria Drive is obviously ideal, correct?
Correct. We wish to do so as well.
I think everybody wishes you to do so. I think going into, and this is just me speaking, I think going into the Trumbull-Monroe border, with the amount of pedestrians that are there, since there's going to be little commercial there, I don't know, in my head, doesn't seem like to be the best way to send more traffic through that area, depending on what you're putting into, because we don't even know yet what you're putting in, right? Do you guys have leases for any of the buildings?
Nothing signed, but
So there's nothing signed, so what's going in yet. We have, it's just my concern going to basically an almost residential area with that traffic. So,
So the plan before you is only the one main drive, so we're not, as of this point, we're not showing any connectivity. There have been discussions, but nothing has been finalized, so. In reference to connecting to the neighboring parcel.
how far along are you with the talks of the neighboring parcel?
We're engaged, but like I said, nothing has been finalized, so.
And Rick, you said the fire department and police department
Recommend strongly.
recommend strongly. So they're not in favor of the way it is currently then, basically.
That's correct. They share your concerns with the amount of traffic generated by the 4 buildings.
And now you want to close this, why?
It's a preliminary phase at this point. We're just trying to get approved, essentially the proof of concept. The official SEP application that will come back for its commission will hopefully have all those details worked out. At this phase, we're just seeking preliminary approval. It's the first step in the process. There will be, again, a full SEP application before all.
So if we approve this, so say we approve this, every time they go into one of those buildings, they have to come in front of us still?
The whole development has to come in front of us. This is just to create another.
Yeah, this is step 1 for the consent.
Allowed to build.
It's not allowed to build, but the driveway would stand as it stands, right?
That's right.
That's not been approved. We're just approving another special design district within the.
Aren't we approving the driveway?
We're not approving really anything.
No, conceptually, the circulation is an important component. And I know if you want to act favorably, you're going to direct staff to add language that strongly recommends these other connectors.
Right.
And then we'll see how it plays out.
So it's the first step of so.
So basically, we're just gonna either approve or deny them the ability to eventually put something along the lines of what they want there. They can't put a shovel in the ground yet.
No.
Aha,
That is correct.
well done.
They have time.
So I'm still concerned about that, but I guess if we're still that far away from the buildings.
So we can add or
Yeah, I'm done.
just looking.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We can add or subtract driveways, or we have to put that in as part of our approval?
No, this initial, you want to express the overall circulation plan
Okay.
for the development.
We can add that in.
Yes,
And so that's not.
Absolutely.
We can get, if we decide we don't need it, we don't need it. But we can put it in there. That's,
absolutely.
okay, that's all I have now. That's it.
I think just for the record, Kevin Soley, I think you can certainly encourage us to continue to pursue access to Victoria Drive. Since that's a private way outside of our control, I'm not sure you can mandate that we provide a connection there. If there's concerns about the number of driveways entering the property, we can look at possibly redesign it at a second curb cut on Route 25, if that's part of the concern. And we'll certainly continue to push for that access into Victoria. We do think that's a good way of access management, but again, it's outside of our control. And ultimately, the Department of Transportation, they obviously, govern curb cuts on Route 25 by proceeding with the Special Development District application. It allows us to continue to proceed with our permitting with them. And I think, as you mentioned in the last hearing, Chris, I mentioned today, we are at step 2 of the OSTA DOT review process. So that the access and the signal location, the congestion, that's all getting worked out with the detailed review by the DOT.
Thank you. Commissioner Westland.
I mean, I don't think Victoria Drive is going to happen. I don't see any reason for them to want to clog up their access way. Whether or not we recommend connectivity or not doesn't change their position on their road. So I just believe that anything that we approve for this site is going to generate a great deal of traffic. And we need to take that into consideration as a commission and realize that we're going to have to look into other options, because just recommending connectivity to Victoria Drive probably won't happen. So it's just a thought. And I don't want to pigeonhole the site to where we can't do anything with it.
And again, the DOT will require us to mitigate our impact. So adding additional turn lanes in and out of the driveway, make sure we're not adversely impacting the traffic operations. That's something that they're going to require from the overall development. So this commission should take some solace that there is a second set of highly technical eyes looking at the access management and traffic control.
Yep, that's all I have.
No questions.
Okay. And we'll go to the public on this application. If there's anyone here tonight that would like to comment for, against, or just any kind of a comment on this application, please raise your hand. Anyone online that would like to comment on this application, please raise your hand. Seeing none. No more questions from the commissioners. Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your time, and look forward to a favorable resolution.
All right, well, hereby close this hearing. Moving on, second public hearing is RAA 2023-03, file number 1026E. I have a letter withdrawing this application from Attorney Chris Russo. So we will thereby withdraw this, allow him to withdraw this application. Moving along, we have RAA 2023-06, file number 1029E. This is a new modification of excavation and fill language. And we have
Yes. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearing. In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, July 6th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting. An in-person attendee is located at Monroe Town Hall. RAA 2023-06, file number 1029E, petition for regulation amendment of proposed modification of section 6.4, excavation and filling of town of Monroe zoning regulation. Foley Engineering LLC applicant. Notice was published in Voices twice, Wednesday, June 21st and June 28th, 2023.
okay, and for the applicant.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have some exhibits.
Go ahead.
Exhibit 1, application set plans. Exhibit number 2, Health Department comments. Exhibit 3, Town Engineer comments. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Mr.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. Office is located right here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. Rick, could you look at the?
Yep.
So we're here tonight for a proposed regulation amendment to section 6.4 of the Monroe zoning regs. And these are all related to conditions associated with the excavation and filling permit regulations. As this commission may be aware, there's been a recent court decision rendered and some case law that's been established that essentially creates a clear message from state statutes and the courts that only zoning boards of appeals are authorized to waive zoning regulations. Now, this is something that's kind of been somewhat recently tested and established. There's certainly a lot of communities that have some waiver provisions built into their regulations. However, some recent case law has come out and further reinforced that only zoning boards of appeals have the ability to waive those requirements, even if it is clearly articulated in the zoning regulations. The town of Monroe and the zoning regulations that exist today, section 6.4 relating to excavation and filling, they have some provisions in there that basically empowers the commission to waive some of those requirements on a case-by-case basis. And this commission has certainly acted in its capacity in the past and waived some of those requirements when an applicant has requested it. However, some of the recent decisions have seemed to provide clarity that that isn't something that the commission really has the authority to do. So what we've done is we proposed a regulation amendment, which would essentially eliminate the aspects of the regulations which kind of discuss waivers and encourage waivers. And we focus primarily on some of those conditions that have been pretty regularly waived because it's how they are applied to specific properties. This commission and previous commissions have seen has deemed it very reasonable to waive some of these specific conditions. So we proposed a regulation amendment to essentially eliminate the references to the waivers and to eliminate those conditions which have been historically waived. Because these conditions not only apply to excavation and fill permit applications, but they also apply to every site plan and special exception permit application. So I know that there have been several applications before this commission where even if it's a site plan or special exception, they've also waived these same conditions because technically they do apply. So I'm just going to run through some of the proposed regulation amendments and talk through that. So section 6.4.9, these are conditions of excavation and or filling or grading operations. We've struck out the last part of that last sentence, except as may be waived by the commission upon written request by the applicant in accordance with section 6.4.23 of these regulations. So again, that takes out the provision that the courts have said this commission doesn't have the ability to waive. And then from a condition standpoint, we've essentially eliminated A stays the same, no changes in contour shall conform to the plans approved by the commission. That gives you the ultimate control to review what's being proposed and determine whether or not that grades are appropriate. We have eliminated number B, which no artificial slope greater than 27 degrees to the horizontal or maximum 2 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical should be created. That's oftentimes this commission, many applications have proposed grades, even that's been a provision that's been historically waived. No change in contour shall be made within 25 feet of any property line. Again, several applications have come before this commission which propose grading up to the right of way or grading between two properties or grading even in between interior property lines. That's a condition that's often waived. So we're requesting to eliminate that from the regulations. Item D, no artificial slope greater than 14 degrees to the horizontal or maximum 4 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical should be created within 50 feet of any property line. Again, that's something that's this commission has historically viewed and waived that requirement because again, from a grading plan preparation, this commission can certainly review any proposed grades and you're the ultimate authority on what should and shouldn't be created. So we wanted to eliminate that condition with that specificity. E, no artificial slope greater than 14 degrees to the horizontal shall be created within 50 feet of any street line. Again, that's a grading requirement within so many feet of a street line, and oftentimes bringing a driveway in or doing grading along the front, the frontage of a piece of property has and can propose something greater than that. So again, this is just something that this commission is viewed favorably in the past from a waiver standpoint. We then renumbered all of the remaining conditions so that they matched up to their appropriate lettering. And then in condition J, we just struck out one sentence. All permitted such activities, regardless of permitted location, shall not include permit or involve materials from off-site locations. Again, this is something that the commission has viewed on other applications. If you need to bring in place fill on a site, import material, either the commission would have to waive that requirement or now by eliminating it, it's no longer something the commission has to waive. And then that was it. So then the rest of it was just renumbering all the other conditions that exist so that they're labeled accordingly. And then under 6.4.13, regarding the duration of an excavation or filling permit, we just adjusted the lettering to reflect those conditions which we're proposing to eliminate under 4. And then towards the end of 6.423, it does talk about the waiver. We eliminated that component from the regulations, and the courts have continued to reinforce that. This commission doesn't have the ability to do that. So what we propose, we do believe is in accordance with both the comprehensive plan and the plan of conservation and development. The POCD in several different sections talks about encouraging economic development by providing this clarity and this clarification. This really allows the commission to view applications on a case-by-case basis, evaluate what's being proposed from a grading standpoint, and make decisions without having to rely or refer back to this waiver provision, which again has been shown to not be within your purview. On page, I'm just going to touch on a couple of these. In the introduction on page 8, it talks a lot about a survey that was conducted. A lot of the survey responses in that POCD talked about wanting to see about continued growth and change, but incremental. Again, by allowing these changes to be enacted and adopted, it gives the commission further ability to do these applications on a case-by-case basis and kind of encourage and fuel that growth. That'll help lower the, again, development of commercial and industrial properties. It'll help the tax base and it'll allow continue to encourage that growth. There was a lot of discussion regarding the focus group meetings. A lot of those components and aspects talk about, how to encourage development. And again, this clarity from a regulation method standpoint is something that we think will just eliminate some of that. Some of those issues raised by some recent court decisions. And then, again, this is a proposed legislative action. This commission controls and governs what your regulations say and what they can and can't require. We think that these proposed changes are something that are in line with what the commission has previously waived. And by eliminating these, again, it further empowers you. And it allows you to review applications on a case-by-case basis without having this potential waiver issue kind of looming over your head and putting future decisions at peril if there are any other challenges from legal standpoint. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
All right, so you all know that we need to change this language. And by changing it in this manner, the slope and grading requirements and the importing of material will be under our control in each application. There won't be a blanket statement saying you can't do any of this, and then we come back later and say, oh, but you can. This way we'll be able to, during each application that's being brought before us, we'll be able to say, well, this is what you need to do as far as grading and slopes and importation or not. So, questions? On my left.
So I know, Mike, you just said we still maintain control for grading and for what? Slopes.
Still that.
What about bringing fill in?
Yes, for any application, any application, the commission has the purview and the authority to review what's being proposed. If it's import, what kind of material, how it will be handled, and you can include specific conditions for any application to address all of these things. So again, these are even conditions that you could apply in the future for any application, but by limiting them as mandatory conditions and limiting the waiver provisions really gives you the most control and helps alleviate the issues that have been raised from some court proceedings.
Thank you. Yeah, no other questions.
Just out of curiosity, if that's the case and it was under our control to begin with, why were they written into the regulations to begin with?
That's a great question. We went back from a historical standpoint, and the excavation and fill permit regulations have been enacted for a long time. I think the latest version, the earliest version I saw, I think was 2003. A lot of the conditions were written very similar. I'm not sure where 27 degrees to the horizontal, that language even came from. I'll say a lot of communities don't have that level of specificity in terms of standard conditions with excavation and fill permit regulations, so I'm not sure where it came from. But I think the waiver test is something that kind of came up, I'd say, probably in the last 10 years. And it's just really been tested in some court proceedings recently.
Unless lots are available now, so we're dealing with more challenges topography-wise and other things, so it's becoming more of an issue.
Correct.
Now, Rick, being the expert here, what are some of the foreseeable downsides of these changes?
That's a good question. In speaking with special counsel, I compared the three communities that I have worked with, and not one of them has had this type of language in it. I also checked other communities, and they did not provide that. So to answer your question, Monroe is quite unique with this language that was put in
Much more
10
restrictive.
years ago. Yes. And as far as I can tell, was done without the benefit of a review by the town attorney.
Okay.
Whenever the commission initiates a text amendment, it is referred to the town attorney and/or special counsel.
Thanks, that's all I have.
So was this sent to the town attorney?
Yes.
And what'd they say?
You have Barbara here tonight, and I think she will indicate to you that she is supportive of it.
Can we hear from Barbara now?
Sure.
Barbara?
Yes, I do agree. This makes a lot of sense. I think Kevin explained certainly satisfactorily the reason for doing this. As you know, I of course had appeared before you a couple of months ago specifically to discuss the most recent decision by Judge Radcliffe that held that the waiver provisions in section 6.4 0.9 are invalid. So I
Maybe those
move
big trees in the
forward
back
in
have cut out
this
our
manner
service.
in finding that these proposed text amendments are in accordance with both the comprehensive plan and the POCD, and any other findings, obviously, that the commission would feel is appropriate if you decide to approve these text amendments.
That's all I needed to hear. I'm good.
Commissioner Ambrosi.
Yeah, so where are we moving
So,
stuff, right?
yes, correct.
And I believe that other towns, of ours may be a little bit more stricter, but I don't believe other towns just remove the regulations.
Well, again, we're not eliminating the excavation and fill permit regulations.
No, but we're eliminating distance, we're eliminating certain things.
Yes, we're proposing to.
Certain towns have different regulations than we do.
Yes.
I believe that this should have been in the subcommittee before it was brought here. I believe that's what should have been done, so that we can look at the other regulations that the town has for their grading and fill permits and for, footage and the grades and everything like that, because just to remove them, it affects the whole town.
Well, I don't believe it affects the town. I don't believe that it does create any negative implications or effects to the town because again, see, these are specific conditions that talk about very specific slope requirements within side property lines and front property lines. Now, any application that comes before this commission, those applications have to include proposed grades. They have to show you what grading is being proposed, if any grading is being proposed within a sideline or a front yard, or how far from the front yard. So this commission still has the ability to say, what's the slope there? I think that's too steep. We want you to shallow it out. So it doesn't create any risk for the town, provided that this commission continues to do its job in applying regulations and making sure that proposals are safe and fair.
I understand.
All it does is it eliminates the specificity of conditions that have been historically waived by this commission. And I can point to several applications that have come before this
No,
commission.
and I understand that, we do waive them, and basically, we shouldn't have been waiving them. and we should have had the applicant go to the zoning board of appeals to get it waived. That's the way it should have been done. We did 2 cases like that that went to court. We lost one. We lost this other one. We shouldn't be here today doing this. This should have been done through the staff or whatever, advising a person that's coming in for a grading and fill permit that the zoning board cannot give you. We have to go to ZBA. Because there's certain conditions where we may want to have that, but you're removing them.
Well, but you can, this commission can also apply conditions to any application.
Same.
I understand that, but when you're coming in with an application, you're not mandated to meet those specific conditions.
Correct.
If you remove it.
Yep.
Right.
That's correct.
Am I right or not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so then we're just removing it all. So you don't have to come in front of this commission and ask for this commission for those waivers because you already removed them. They're gone.
We're not allowed to come to this commission.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm saying right now, by removing everything, you don't even have to ask us anymore. Or do you have to go to ZBA to get that done? I'm saying that, not that I'm not, maybe we have to work on it. I'm saying the way that he has this written up here for his approval, there's just like 3 things in here. It doesn't have anything else in here. There's nothing here specific. And so why am I going to sit here and do this if I don't go over the whole thing?
I mean, I would argue that, so there were a total of, there were A through S from a standard condition standpoint, the excavation from regulations. We proposed to remove 4 and modify 1 additional one. So all of those other conditions, which are very appropriate, still apply. You have to, you can't create artificial lakes and ponds. The property has to be graded to protect against erosion in low-lying areas. All those other provisions would still be in effect. The only thing that we're proposing to eliminate are those conditions that have been historically waived by this commission. Now, you've argued to go to ZBA. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a very strict process in how they review applications, and they have to look at what's being proposed and whether or not it creates a hardship, or what is that hardship, or if it's self-creating. If I was to come in with an application across 2 pieces of property where I wanted to develop and create a unified development, let's point to the Aldi and Panera Bread and Noble Gas, right? There is a piece of property there that there's an overall development that is comprised of 2 different parcels, right? There are provisions that say you can't change the contours within so many feet of a side yard, which would make that project not viable if this commission wasn't able to waive these standard conditions. So again, it allows, we couldn't go to ZBA and say, I need a variance for this requirement because it would be self-inflicted, self-created, right? And that's subject to a different type of test from a legal standpoint. But by eliminating those conditions from this waiver provision, this commission still has the authority to review proposed plans, review proposed grading. If it makes sense, you can approve it. If it doesn't, you can deny it, or you can require these.
Still require the same 27% grade, the same setbacks, and the same prohibition of importing materials.
Correct.
We can, but we have to do it individually. It's not going to be a blanket.
I'm saying to you,
So that it doesn't restrict us
they don't even have
at
to meet
all.
that requirement to come here.
They do once we look at the
No, they're looking, they
application.
have to look for a waiver to come here. I'm saying is that we need to look at our regulations and see and compare them to other towns and what they're doing and just streamline ours a little bit, but not just remove stuff. I just don't like just taking and just remove. It doesn't work that way. I mean, basically it doesn't work that way. For me, it don't work that way because those regulations were put in place for a reason. And now we're just removing them. I don't think that's the way we should do this. And I think this should have been brought in front of the subcommittee, and we should have laid it out, see what other towns are doing, how they address it. And if ours is messed up, this commission takes and changes it. But it's not like they don't have an avenue to go to ZBA, because they all have an avenue to go to Zoning Board of Appeals. If it's just that we can't give the waiver, and we should have never gave the waiver.
Okay,
So that's my opinion.
All right.
I'll move on to you guys.
Commissioner Condon.
I'll wait till after public.
Okay, Commissioner Smigliano. Questions are answered. Okay. Did you have a question?
I just have a statement. I'm just saying I understand where Leon's coming from, but the town attorney and
Town planner.
and town planner, I mean, everyone's pretty much in favor of going this route. I mean, and we still do have control over things that are going on. I mean, I understand where Leon's coming from. You don't want to just all of a sudden just eliminate, but it doesn't eliminate us from still having the ability to enforce it.
The part I'm not catching here is we take these out, strike them out of the regulations. What mechanism is in place to get that application in front of us?
Oh, it's still going to come in front of us.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay,
Those requirements are gone.
got it.
Upfront requirements, which we can put in.
You have to go to ZBA route for those
I
provisions.
understand that. I'm saying to you that the requirements are gone. And we can make our regulations to accommodate whatever requirements we want. But right now, we're just removing them. We're not,
Yes, we are
we are
removing
removing
those.
them. We're not changing them. We're not making them better for the town. We're not making them uniformly across other towns. We're just removing them. It should have been brought in front of the subcommittee, and we should have hashed it out before we end up changing the
It
regulations.
depends on who you ask, though, if it's not better for the town. If you ask the land use attorney, it's better for the town.
All right, let's go to the public now. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on this application, please raise your hand. I see someone with their hand raised. Right up front, and please speak into the microphone and just give your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport, the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Peter Metropolis, who's an owner of the property at 136 Timothy Hill Road in Monroe. By the way, just a note, when I looked online, I did not see the exhibits which were referenced. I'm not sure whether they're.
Oh, they are.
online, because they were not in the packet or in the materials today when I.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had staff check that today, so I know they are on.
Yeah, okay.
Well, this morning I didn't see them, but be that as it may, I'm going to ask you as a commission on behalf of my client to judge the wisdom, the ethics, and whether you are fulfilling your duty to the citizens of the town of Monroe with respect to this application. I've been before you before. I was before you on the Cambridge Drive, Independence Drive project. This waiver argument is nothing new. It was already tested by the court in the McKenzie matter, which was in this town. The court said you can't waive these requirements on a case-by-case basis. So the answer is not to simply have no standards for slopes and filling along boundary lines, but to Commissioner Ambrosie's point, study it. Study it. Don't just throw out all standards. How will you judge applications if you have no standards? Here you have an applicant, an engineer, who represents the property owner, the unsuccessful property, well, I suppose the successful property owner before this commission, where this matter went up on appeal and the court said, once again, you can't waive the standard. But to eliminate all standards, this is not the Wild West. Section 8-2 of the general statutes empowers this commission to adopt zoning regulations and to modify zoning regulations. And there are rules for doing it, and the standards are in 8-2. And Attorney Schellenberg can provide you with all the information you want on the standards. And amongst those standards is to assure safety, to provide all these standards that the legislature vested in you in adopting regulations. The logic that this applicant is giving you is, why don't you get rid of all standards? Why don't you get rid of setbacks, height, grading standards, filling standards? And if you do that, how are people going to know what the rules are, how they can develop property in the town. That's not what the statutes provide. The statutes provide that you are supposed to understand when you read the regulations what you can and can't do. And it's not a matter of coming to this commission and having this commission say, oh, we like this slope or we don't like that slope. Because where you're going is applicants are going to start saying, hey, you let that property owner have that kind of slope and that kind of filling, but you didn't let that applicant do it. And the answer is you should have that standard so that you can point to the rules and say, we as a commission have adopted these standards and this is how you have to do it in the town of Monroe. And if you have a particular problem, go to the ZBA. If you have a hardship and you can't do it. But what you have here is a regulation that is so obviously, an application that is so obviously conceived to allow the owners of 64 Cambridge and 16 Independence or 4 Independence to go forward with the project. And these comments, like other towns don't have grading regulations, continue this matter. I'll bring you a boatload of zoning regulations with grading standards. And I don't know what towns you're comparing this to, but the towns I see have excavation and grading standards in them because that's what 8-2 conceives. And that's what it requires. And it can't be done on a case-by-case basis. And what about the notion of getting rid of the requirement that you can't process materials on site? What's the impact of that? So whenever I want to fill my site, I can start bringing concrete with rebar on it and start crushing materials, even in residential zones. My neighbor can start doing that, or even in commercial zones. Is that what you're saying? So you don't have a regulation. If you do this, you don't have a regulation that says that you can't process materials on site. And you cannot get that arbitrary and start saying, you can do it, you can't do it. There has to be some standard. So what I'm asking you to do is exactly what Commissioner Ambrosi did, is let's do the analysis. Let's look at it. Let's really see what other towns and cities are doing, what other municipalities are doing. There are resources available to this commission. You could get a peer review. There are all kinds of ways of looking at this. But you got to do the right thing, and you've got to understand. And by the way, this reference to, well, you waived it in the past, I don't know. That's not clear to me. I don't know how many times statistically you waived it or you haven't. And I just think that for everyone saying that they looked at it carefully, there's nothing in the record that supports that. So I know that this commission, by the way, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your thought. I appreciate the effort and the many hours you put in. And I get that, and I appreciate it. And thank you for your service. And I know you want to do the right thing. So get the analysis. And if this applicant is so dedicated to the notion of doing this, they should provide you with the baseline, with the study, and you have resources available to see what other towns are doing. And by the way, many towns that don't have the standards reference deep. Deep has certain erosion and grading standards, for example. There are regulations on that. For example, as Mr. Schultz is aware, there are references in the Shelton guidelines, in the Shelton regulations, for example, to the Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. There are all kinds of resources out there. So just get the information that you can say to the citizens of Monroe, we looked at this thoroughly, and here's our conclusion. And Attorney Schellenberg can be of great help, but please, with the assistance of the applicant and the staff, do the work and act deliberately and thoughtfully on this application. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but everyone should understand what the rules are. And that's why we have zoning regulations. And just throwing out the rules here is not the right move.
Thank you, Attorney Green.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the, come right up. Just name and address for the.
We also have one online, just to be clear.
Good evening. My name's Eric Talbot. I'm a resident of Monroe. I second everything that the previous gentleman said. I did have a comment, one for the board. You don't have regulations, like 5 years from now, maybe half of you aren't here, and you've got a maybe almost different cast of characters. Not everybody's a civil engineer, so the rules should be clear to everybody, including future members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. One other thing that stuck in my mind was clean fill. Depends on what your definition of clean fill is. I'm not a civil engineer. Clean fill to me would be screened topsoil. Somebody else might say beach sand is good enough. Somebody else might say crushed rock is good enough. You should have specifics on what clean fill is allowed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Anyone else in the audience? And online, do we have any? We have someone online, Mr. Finn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Steve Finn. I'm an attorney in Stamford, Connecticut. I am the attorney for the owners of 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. I've had the privilege of appearing before you previously. Just a few comments. Your regulations as they stand now, 6.4.8, which is entitled Requirements for Approval for Excavation and or Grading Permit, gives you a whole list of factors that you can take into account when deciding whether to approve or disapprove an excavation and fill permit application. And that gives you complete control over what you want to approve and what you do not want to approve on any particular excavation and fill permit application. In addition, you can always place conditions. So you can condition any approval on a definition of clean fill that you want to utilize or you want to use for purposes of a particular application. You also have the resources of the town engineer, which you have used in the past to vet and approve applications for excavation and fill permits. Furthermore, you also have the ability to require, I believe you have the ability to require the applicant to pay for an independent expert review, which could include an independent engineer. So you have complete control. What's happened here is you've been hamstrung by your own regulations. So we have the perfect example for 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence. We went on for 3 or 4 hearings and eventually you approved our application. And on all reports, the work that's been done under that excavation fill permit has gone perfectly well without any ill effects. And I think your town planner can attest to that because he's been getting independent reports. So where did we get? You got hung up on a technicality. The technicality is that you have waiver provisions and you're not allowed to have waiver provisions for excavation and fill permits, but you still have complete control here under your regulations and your ability to impose conditions. Lastly, your POCD, which is very, very thorough, talks about the need to encourage industrial and commercial development. And in one aspect, I'm not going to read you too much from this, but it says that you should consider the town zoning regulations may not be flexible enough to allow development that market demands. This is a perfect example where your regulations are overly stringent, are not flexible enough because you have these blanket prohibitions that no one can get by without a waiver. But you can impose the exact same things in a particular case under the powers that you have under the zoning regulations, even with this amendment. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Attorney Finn. Are there any other members of the public online or in person that would like to comment on this application? Seeing none. Back to Mr. Solly.
Again, thanks, Mr. Kevin Solly, for the record. Just to point out some things, we are proposing to eliminate all conditions. We aren't proposing to allow for stuff to happen in a residential zone that wasn't allowed before. We're not doing any of that. We're not eliminating references to soil erosion, sediment control, or anything else. We're simply proposing to eliminate some very specific requirements, which we don't know the true origin of or what the initial intent was for, but we know that they've been historically and traditionally waived by this commission, whether that was done in accordance with state statutes or not. A standard condition that you're not allowed to grade within 25 feet of a side property line is an onerous one that puts the town of Monroe at a competitive disadvantage if you can't grade the property line. And that is not, that is not in conformance with what the used to be. I don't think it's the regulations. This commission has the ability to review the grading plan through their experts, through the town engineer, through the town planner, determine whether or not proposed grading activities are appropriate or not. Simply proposing to eliminate these very specific and we believe onerous conditions that have been standard conditions for years and historically waived. We believe that this just allows for better processing and empowering this commission to better do your job in reviewing applications. So
I have a question to ask. So on the grading, within 25 feet of the property line, there's certain conditions in this town where we wouldn't want that to be touched.
of course,
Right. And so by removing it, it's not a requirement.
this commission can consider whatever they
Listen to me. I have that. And so then we open up a can of worms there. So then we approve it for this guy and we don't approve it for that guy. And then that guy's going to take us to court and say, well, you approved it for him, but you didn't approve it for me. I believe that we need to look at our standards. It needs to be done in a subcommittee. And then we need to know and go through all our standards in order for us to come up with the best plan that fits the town.
Why wouldn't we approve it for the other guy?
Because there's certain conditions that we may not approve for the other guy.
And we would state
And it
that,
could be
right?
next to
Health and
somebody's.
safety maybe, or danger, and then that would be different than the one we approved.
If a guy proves in court that there was no health or standards or safety, it's just that the commission was being biased against me or something like that, we lose that case in court. But we need to have regulations. We need not to remove regulations. We need to have some kind of regulation. And I don't understand how the attorney says that this is okay. I just don't get it.
Well, the judge said it's illegal.
What's that?
The judge said what we have in place right now is illegal.
It's illegal of what we did, not of what we have in place. What we have in place.
Grant a waiver provision.
We cannot, in this commission, grant a waiver.
Yes.
It has to go to ZBA.
Okay.
We've been doing that for years that we're not supposed to do. If there's something wrong with our regulations, we need to look at our regulations so we don't have to grant a waiver. But to remove regulations, we're removing.
We're not removing all of the regulations. You're removing the waiver regulation
You're
part.
removing a requirement.
Yes. With
Right.
the waiver.
You are removing a requirement. You're removing a requirement that we have in place right now. You're removing a requirement. I have an issue with that. It's unfair to the town.
All right, so is there any, what's your thoughts to giving developers some idea versus saying, well, even common sense sloping requirements or, versus eliminating them completely? I mean, I understand the engineers do know what's going to get by safely and what isn't.
So I've worked in a lot of communities and I've reviewed a lot of regulations. I've got excavation and fill permits in other communities. I'm aware of what conditions exist and what conditions don't. I think it's been echoed by the town planner and the town attorney that the provisions that we're proposing to modify are unique and aren't standard in other communities. From an engineering standpoint, every plan that comes before this commission has to be signed by a civil engineer. There's a requirement that plans be prepared by licensed engineers. Licensed engineers have requirements, ethical standards, professional requirements that show that we have to propose things that are going to be safe, not create, hazardous conditions for the health or welfare or the communities that we're working on. And I think, and a good developer is going to want to propose to build a development that is safe and reasonable so it can be economically viable for them. And you know, if I had worked for a client who asked me to propose something that didn't fit in that box, I wouldn't do it.
You could say that about all the regulations though, and then no need for us.
True, but a blanket condition, you can't grade within 25 feet of a property line, that is onerous. And that's not something that isn't something that's in any other regulation, any other community.
Yeah, down to 10 feet or.
I don't think, what if you have a shopping center that has a Noble Gas and another development and a driveway in the middle? I can't grade to build the driveway without going to ZBA. ZBA won't give me a variance for that. It's a self-inflicted hardship.
Okay, nobody's saying that. But there could be where if it's, where you're absolutely lots of together, we can make some kind of requirement to allow that to happen. See, you're just telling me.
But Mr. Ambrose, just let me make a point. The state statutes and the Judge Radcliffe said, this commission doesn't have the ability to do that. If your regulation says you can't grade within 25 feet of the property line, you don't get to say, oh, in this case, I think we should and we could. So what I'm trying to do is eliminate the onerous conditions that make uniform development impossible in this community.
What I'm saying to you is you're putting up one scenario where two pieces of property come together, putting up one scenario. I'm talking about, what about the person that's next door there that has a residential house or a residential piece next to a commercial piece?
Yes.
So then in that incident, then it should be there. And you're just removing that.
See, we're not, because
We are.
The commission zoning regulations are vast. They aren't just excavation filter regulations. There are landscape setback and landscape buffer requirements that do exactly what you're referring to. They provide protection against those neighbors if they want to ensure that they're not going to have an adverse impact to a residential zone or anything else. All the commercial and industrial zones, you know what the required landscape buffer is from an industrial piece of property to a residential property? It's 100 feet and 50 feet. So those buffers exist. Those buffers are built into our regulations so that you can ensure that you're providing those protections for those surrounding communities. But if I have two commercial pieces of property that want to create a uniform grade in between the properties, I think it's appropriate for this commission to have regulations that allow for that to happen.
And I understand that, but I think that for you to come here and to propose a change in our regulations, that it shouldn't have been there in the first place. Should have been brought to the subcommittee so that we could get the input from the staff, get the input from you, get the input from everybody, and sit around a table and look at it all, and then make a decision of what's best for this town. Instead of just coming in here and just wiping stuff off. I said a long time ago that this should have been in the subcommittee, and it never made it there. It never made it there, and it should have made it there, because most of the stuff is brought there first before it's brought here, especially when we're changing regulations. And that's where I'm at with that. And I may look better at it if it was in the subcommittee and went through the whole thing and had everything laid out. But to come here and just cross this out, cross that out, cross this out, cross that out, I'm not happy with it.
Okay, Mr. Solly, let's move this along. Anything substantive to add before we close the hearing?
Just that, we really appreciate the commission's consideration. We've been very thoughtful with our proposed revisions to the regulations. We've done this based on our experience with our surrounding communities, working with staff, understanding their experience and working with council. And we believe that these proposed revisions are in accordance with the comprehensive plan, in accordance with POCD. And we believe this will clean up an issue that has existed in these regulations for quite some time and need to be clarified. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll close this hearing. Moving on. We have three applications that are pretty much connected.
When it's single.
It's only 8 o'clock. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. We resume the regular July 6, 2023 meeting of the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission. We are up to the public hearing, RAA 2023-07. As I said, there are three parts to this application. We're going to need to open and close each one and read the notices separately. However, if you talk about them together, we'll get it. These three.
I don't know. It says read all together. So do you want me to read them all, open them all at once?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We have to open and close them separately.
We'll close them separately.
Well, separately, but we can read the, okay, so. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearing to be held July 6, 2023, via hybrid meeting and in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall. RAA 2023-07 file 1030E255 Monroe Turnpike, petition for regulation amendment to amend the Main Street Design District minimum lot size regulations. 255 Monroe Turnpike LLC applicant. Also opening ZCA RAA 2023-02 file number 102-255 Monroe Turnpike, petition for zone map regulations change to rezone property to special development district number 3. Property currently zoned LOR and Main Street Design District overlay located at 255 Monroe Turnpike, Assessor's Map 014, Lot 006, 066/00, 255 Monroe Turnpike LLC applicant, and SEP SDP 2023-07 file number 1655A 255 Monroe Turnpike, petition for special exception permit and site development plan approval for fast food restaurant with accessory drive-through at 255 Monroe Turnpike, Assessor's Map 014, Lot 066/00, 255 Monroe Turnpike LLC applicant. Notice was published twice in Voices on Wednesday, June 21st and June 28th.
Thank you. This is all read at once. And Rick, the exhibits.
Yes, for the first application, Mr. Chairman, exhibit number 1, application set and plans. Number 2, stamp receipt of application filed with the town clerk. 3, certified mail receipts. 4, traffic study. 5, town engineer comments. Application number 2. Exhibit 1, application set and plans. 2, stamp receipt of application filed with the town clerk. 3, certified mail receipts. 4, traffic study. 5, engineering comments. Application number 3, application set and ones. Number 2, health department comments. Number 3, certified mail receipts. 4, traffic study. And number 5, engineering comments. Mr. Chairman, as you indicated, these are 3 applications for the same property. The first application is consider a text amendment of the Main Street Design District, allowing a parcel containing 0.9 acres. Our regulations requires a full acre, 43,560. Second application is for the zone change. We just heard the zone change request at 10 and 36. They, however, have submitted a third application is for the detailed plans. So you have a text amendment to allow this parcel to use the MDD, the comprehensive overview, and the third is detailed plans for the site development. This is the first time that this commission has seen this regulation with the comprehensive, the conceptual with the detailed plans. And as I indicated, the first one is to allow a 0.9 acre parcel to use this technique. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Let's start with the regulation text amendment.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and Mr. Schultz. My name is Kevin Crusaden. My office is Crusaden and Moore, LLC. We're located at 3 Lafayette Street, Milford, Connecticut. Tonight, I'm happy to be representing 255 Monroe Turnpike, LLC. With me this evening are members of the representatives of the LLC, Mr. Tartaglia, Mr. Robert Monroe, Mr. Also this evening is the project engineer, PE, Art Lackey, to my right, to the left, and our traffic engineer, Charlie Baker. Mr. Schultz gave a good summary of why we're here tonight. You've also heard, but I'm just going to give a brief overview, build the record on our behalf, and I know this commission's familiar with how you sit in this capacity when you're hearing a regulation change. You act in a legislative capacity and you have discretion about whether to grant the regulation change or not. Some housekeeping items. All the notices were mailed properly within the time frame required. I believe those are part of the exhibits that have been submitted to staff. We also submitted the applications and the text change, the zone change, and the zone change map to the town clerk's office, as is required by state statute 10 days before the opening of this public hearing. Those were actually filed on June 15th. Just a brief history, and you're going to hear a lot more about the site from Mr. Brocky, but the access records, this building on this site was built about 1820. It's been vacant for at least 12 years, if not longer. I've heard a lot of comments tonight already about flexibility in the regulations and how do you really, it's like an adaptive reuse of old parcels or parcels that are pre-existing non-conforming, like this one that existed for many years, probably many years before the zoning regulations, subdivision regulations were put into effect. They're of odd shapes, odd sizes, some of them are undersized, some of this parcel, for example. So this regulation allowing property to take advantage of the MDD, this property sits in that area. It's one of those areas along Route 111, one of the sites along Route 111 that is eligible. It's currently in the LOR, as Mr. Schultz had said at the beginning of opening the public hearing. But it is allowed to apply for the MDD and then create its own special development district. This one would be special. We've presented it as special SDD3 or special development district number 3. I'll get into that, and I'll get into the compliance with the plan of conservation and development in a minute. I do want to point out that our current application posture right now is we've been in front of the ARB with the project architect. That hearing is left open. They're going to, I think, meet again next Tuesday with the applicant and the architect. There's still some questions pending. There's also some utility easements requirements that we're working on with Aquarion and Eversource and things of those nature that are things of utility companies along those lines that we're working with. So we're aware of that, and we've been in conversations with certain neighbors on that, and we've opened up conversations with the utility companies. So I don't know if I can, Mr. Schultz, do I need to touch something on here to share the screen?
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now for you.
So this is our first, I'll just bring it up to the top. You have copies of all of this. It's all been filed electronically as well. So this is the Main Street Design District. One of your requirements when you're asking for a zone text amendment is to present the full current zone text with regulations. You can see here, provide for compatible economic development along routes 25 and 111, the 34 corridors. As I said at the beginning, this property sits on 111. Designated as a design district. The only text change that we're asking for here is minimum district size is currently required to be 1 acre. We're asking it for 0.85 acres. Right now the parcel is actually 0.89 acres or 0.9 acres. And I'll talk about the how that's in compliance with the plan of conservation and development and comprehensive plan in a moment. But this is the first required step or action by the commission if it sees fit to approve this application or move forward in the process. We would need and had conversations with town attorney Ben Marino about this. He felt that we needed to apply for this zone text amendment. I respectfully disagreed with him based on a regulation in the town of Monroe regulations, which speaks to lot size. And I just want to bring it up because I think it's important to mention we're still applying for it. We're still going along with what the town attorney's recommendation is, because he's more familiar with the Monroe zoning regulations than we are at this point. So in the Monroe, in your zoning regulations, the use of a non-conforming lot of record, a building or structure may be erected as permitted use on any existing lot of record which does not conform to the minimum required lot area or lot shape requirements of these regulations. And then it lists provisions provided that it was in existence prior to 1963, which I did an extensive title search. This parcel was. It was not created by the recording of a first cut or a lot line revision. This parcel doesn't show up in any type of subdivision maps from my title search. Or has never been declared as quote unquote not a building lot on a map recorded in the Monroe land records. All other bulk regulations and applicable provisions of these regulations can be complied with. We have written new regulations to go with the SDD3, which this parcel would comply with for this particular use, so that would be addressed. I'd also like to point out that currently in the LOR, the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres. So we're not compliant with the current lot size, the lot size requirement anyway. There's no adjacent land of which the owner of both lots can take advantage of combining the contiguous land to make a conforming lot. That does not exist in this case. Shall satisfy all applicable requirements of the Town of Monroe Health Department for potable water supply and sewage disposal facilities. And you'll hear from our project design experts and engineers that we would comply with that as well. The use of such lot shall be such that there should be no adverse effect on the public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which it is located. It's our position that this type of restaurant would not have any detrimental effect. So with respect to the plan of conservation and development, it's, once again, this requirement for the development districts, or this allowance for the development districts, really is helpful in allowing the town to move forward with economic development, because there are many towns in this area that do not have the adaptive reuse, which you've heard a lot about those waiver regulations earlier, that everyone there, Mr. Soley was correct and the attorney is correct. Only the ZBA can waive the regulations. However, this gives you flexibility where flexibility doesn't really exist, because if we weren't able to create the SDD3 and create our own regulations in order to support this development, we wouldn't be able to, we'd have to come in for too many variances and it wouldn't make sense. In this case, this lot is oddly shaped and undersized, so there probably are some hardships that support, but not all of the requirements in order to have a viable commercial development at this location. So for example, in the conformity with the plan of conservation and development, and this is all in the narrative, and I won't read it word for word, but I'll just highlight a few things. And this has to do with the SDD3 zone change application as well. The town should continue to play, and this is under Chapter 1, an active role in supporting economic development as means of diversifying its tax base and reducing its reliance on residential property taxes, which is something that this project would do. There was a concern about the town's school system is challenging to maintain. There's concern about development adding to the school population and creating a greater challenge. This is something that would not impact, would have the opposite effect. There would be no residential development on this site. Economic development, that section, vacant sites, which this site's been vacant for at least 12 years, if not longer, according to Mr. Tartaglia. The retail spaces need to be occupied or redeveloped. The town has too many different commercial zones, should consider consolidating zones. Zoning map and districts should be redrawn to create development opportunities, which is exactly what this type of flexible mechanism in your zoning regulations allows you to do. Zoning along 111 should allow for development that is responsive to market conditions, including mixed use of residential development, but responsive to market conditions in a different way. see. Priority themes, grow economic base. Monroe's economy is changing and the town should work towards encouraging and supporting a diverse economy that draws upon Monroe's strengths, including access to state highways, in this case, 111, available commercial and industrial, strong business environment. Chapter 2, economic development goal. Chapter 8, implementation summary. And so under Chapter 2, foster a vibrant economy that provides residents and visitors with access to goods, services, and employment opportunities while diversifying the town's property base, which was in the beginning of the chapter. The regulations of the proposed SDD3, and also as a necessary requirement in order for us to take advantage of that, this zone text amendment, provide a course of action and standards implementing the town's stated strategic plan, thereby promoting compatible economic development and enhancing the visual character of the corridor. The development of this long vacant parcel with a strong commercial user greatly serves the economic needs of Monroe and provides an increased and diversified tax base and a mix of uses in town. Comparison of potential positive and negative aspects between the change in zoning or if it was not approved. If the change in zone does not occur, the parcel will most likely continue to sit vacant for many years with minimal tax value. There's a reason it's sat vacant. It's a difficult site to develop. A lot of these national retailers or commercial entities require certain square footage, certain size buildings, certain site requirements. And without the SDD3 and the zone text amendment, we would not be able to supply the required size that Starbucks requires, or really any other commercial developer, because otherwise it would have been developed already. This vacant parcel, the intentions will be developed with Starbucks, dramatically increasing the tax value and enhancing services in Monroe. Then we have the proposed regulations, which by and large are the LOR regulations, except we've called out what we've submitted is what the changes are between what the current LOR regulations are and what the proposed regulations would be. Also, some of the site conditions and standards. We do have specific standards, and we also have, it's not a waiver, but it's considerations that the Planning and Zoning Commission can, for example, instead of, some included in this regulation, instead of landscape buffer of 5 feet, the commission in its, discretion can say, whatever, 2 feet, 3 feet with plantings or a fence, 6-foot fence, 8-foot fence, things along those lines. So we've built that into this as well. I'll just highlight the lot requirements, minimum lot area, acre, 0.85 acres, which is what we have now, approximately 0.85, 0.89. Minimum lot frontage, 150 feet. We eliminated the minimum square requirement because of the shape of the lot. We would not be able to comply with the current LOR minimum lot square requirement. Minimum front yard is 30 feet. We do not have a right-of-way reserve because there's already been takings as far as the state road goes, and we don't believe there's going to be any future takings. And also, the site wouldn't be able to survive with an additional percentage of the square footage taken from it. We do have standards for minimum yards at residential zone boundaries if the property does bound against a residential zone and a residential use. Also bounds against the new another commercial retail that's going in, that's being built right now. Residential zone boundary 20 feet, side yard 20 feet, rear yard 20 feet. Maximum height, 2.5 stories, 35 feet. And the maximum building coverage is 25%. In lieu of a setback, commission may require reasonable screening in the form of fencing, landscaping, wall, or any combination thereof. And I know that commission's had this. I don't want to read everything. I'm happy to answer questions about certain specific aspects of it. We have our parking requirements, 8 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Landscape maintenance, we have sign requirements, stormwater management that Mr. Brock is able to answer any questions or give some information on that. We combed through these pretty tightly, and we believe that the proposed special exception site development plan application complies with the regulations as we're presenting them to you. So pending that, I'm available for questions, or I can turn it over to Mr. Grocki.
Well, why don't we start with questions on this portion of the application? Commissioners have any questions on the text amendment portion of the application?
This portion is just minimum 8 size. That's all I have.
Oh, yeah, no questions on that one.
Where came up with 0.8 something an acre? What do you have there?
The proposal,
Well,
0.85.
0.85?
it's a 0.85.
Is that including the road?
Which road?
Spring Hill.
Which part of
This
Spring Hill? The one that got discontinued?
Yep.
So now, once that was discontinued, each abutting property owner gains fee simple ownership of the road to the center line of the road.
And
So this 0.85 acres does include that footage.
That road, you believe that the road, you could take that road? And doesn't that easement stay with the town?
No, the town discontinued it, so the state statute provides.
Which statute is that?
I can get you that information. But that provides that we have the abutting landowners. So the theory, it's an ancient theory. It goes back to English common law. The theory of it being that the abutting property owners would have owned the underneath the roadbed up to the center line of that road. So that once a road is discontinued, unless there's some other easement or some other right of way, private or otherwise, that half of it will go to the abutting property owners on each side.
And where is that in case law? You have that in case law?
I can provide the case law to
Because I have a thing from the town's attorney that sent to the town council that said that for a selectman asked to get a legal opinion. And because somebody questioned that, they said there's nothing that you should see where it could be turned over to you. Unless you had some kind of research on that.
Well, I'm not privy to the opinion or what the question was that was asked.
The question is that you're adding that 8.5 acres into.
And that's legally correct. I can provide you the case law and the statute on that.
And so you have required that road?
Well, it becomes effective once the notice of discontinuance is recorded on the land records, and that's been done. And then in addition to that, we actually exceeded the standard by recording a discontinuance map at the request of Mr. Schultz. So that's also been completed, but that's not required by that statute.
Okay, so that was just, I didn't look up the cases that he recommended here because I didn't have time to do that tonight.
Sure.
I'll take a look at it.
I'm not sure the date of that, sir. Is that recent or?
Yeah, it was October 12th, 2022.
Oh, when that was happening with the town? I can certainly provide the case law and the statute, probably before we leave here.
So does that mean you acquired that property already, the road, or you did?
The budding property owner has acquired it. So the piece, I think it's Chipotle, Ganem piece, Baghdadi Ganem piece has acquired their half.
So Rick, that's been filed in the town hall?
Yep, this has all been completed.
It's all completed. Could you get me those records on that?
Yep.
Okay.
I can provide the documents too, sir.
Because I know that I've read this and I believe, I don't understand how, I thought that when we discontinued the road, that it would be town's property. Because it's like, we own the road. And so when we disconnect the road, that means that anybody would have easement to travel over that property because it's legally, the town owns the road.
So
the town may have discontinued it, but then that should have been, that should have been like open space.
Well, when the town, but pursuant to the statute that it was discontinued, I apologize, I was still not recalling it. I was focused on our zone text amendment tonight. But when that is discontinued according to that statute, it automatically, the interpretation of that statute and historically, the land.
I believe that the property owners have access over that.
That's correct.
Right, because I don't believe it says that it's turned over to them.
Well, so it ceases the public right of access is what happens when it's discontinued. So for example, not anybody can travel down that pathway, that road anymore. It could be the people that have abutted that road historically, or the property owners who have abutted that road historically. So it would be 255.
I didn't see anywhere where the land was turned over to the property owner.
Well, there's
no case law on that. I don't see it there.
It's interesting because there's not a formal quitclaim deed or anything like that. It just happens by statute once the notice of discontinuance is recorded on the land records. So it's a great question though, because you would logically think that it would be required that there would be affirmative action, but the affirmative action is actually the recording, the approval and the recording of the notice of discontinuance on the land records.
But that's what I'm saying, that's why I would like to see that in the land records, that road was turned over to these property owners, because, you know, I just don't see that the town of this road wouldn't be town's property. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, I don't follow. We have open space, we require people to give open space and stuff like that. And I believe that we discontinue the road, that road really should be town's property. It shouldn't be anybody else's property. We're not going to maintain it anymore, but if we tore it up, then we could have that as an easement or whatever, and it could be turned over to the town.
Right.
And I believe that. I mean, I think that's where it should have went, but I really don't.
Roads are unique in that sense as far as, you know, whether it's open space or becomes a public right of way, but by the very act of the discontinuance, that's what ceases the public right of way to it, and that the adjoining property owners have a right to pass and repass.
Pass on their land, but they could take ownership of the land. I don't see any case law that allows it to happen. I don't see that, so.
Okay, I can certainly provide that.
The other question is that when we put this design district into effect, we had nothing about to do with changing the minimum requirement of the lot. I mean, this was for us to do different development that could change, or if somebody wanted to put something in, we'll change the zone to allow for it like you want to do, but nothing to do with, you know, changing the size of the lot.
Well, it changes the size of the lot, in this case, without this zone text amendment, it changes the requirement from 1.5 acres to 1 acre. So right now, the LOR requirement is 1.5 acres, and we're not compliant with that either.
Right.
So, and that's why I believe personally, based on my experience, that your regulations already address that with the non-conforming lot regulation that talk about the ability to apply for a permit as long as you meet those other criteria that I read into the record.
Well, I believe that the non-conforming would be that the structure would stay the same, like it would be on the same footprint.
Well, yes, sir. There's non-conforming structures, there's non-conforming uses, and there's non-conforming lots. So in this case, we'd be talking about a non-conforming lot, right? And that's what that regulation specifically addresses. So I think there's two different ways to attack it. Really, I think you could approve it under that regulation because we meet all of those requirements once the zone change is done. The town attorney, you know, obviously, who is your counsel. And I know Attorney Schellenberg's here this evening, but maybe, I don't know if she could weigh in on that. But that's why we brought the zone text amendment for that size. But there's another, you know, theory in zoning when you're going from when you're moving the property or the use or the structure from a more non-conforming to a less non-conforming posture. there's the ability to approve a project or an application based on that as well. So for example, in this case, right now, we have an 1.5 acre requirement. We would like to have it, we'd like to be able to have an acre. We don't have an acre. But which is why we have the zone text amendment for the 0.85. We believe we really have 0.89. So if the commission didn't feel comfortable with 0.85, I think that the commission could, change it to 0.89 if it saw fit. But so we're moving it from a requirement of 1.5 acres to a little less than 1 acre at this point. So we're moving in the right direction.
You're not going to be able to meet the acre because you don't have enough land.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
You're not going to be able to meet the acre, right? You won't be able to meet it. Even calculating it.
Well, we're working on it. We're working on it with the other commercial piece, potentially them quitclaiming some property to us to try to bring us up to the acre, but we're not at that point yet. They're still in their development stages, or they're still in their construction stage.
Okay, have you done a traffic study?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the traffic engineer is here this evening.
So I think that we, the town, should do our own traffic analysis because we just put in 3 big businesses there that aren't even built yet. They're on the process of being built. It's going to be New Jersey Mike's, Burger, or whatever it is, but there, and it's going to add traffic to that corner. Has he calculated that all in?
My understanding is that he has included the new developments in this traffic study.
I believe it would be fair that this, if we did our own traffic study on that, Rick, I don't know what the way the rest of the commission feels, but that's a busy one. And so.
I would, I defer to the commissioner, obviously, but I would hear the traffic report of the traffic engineer, and then maybe the commission can decide after that.
That's all I have for now.
So where I stand is when we put these regulations in, it was new to the town. And now that we've put this regulation in, now we're starting to get people to come in and make adjustments to this regulation. Okay, it's the same thing as if when we put mixed use in or stuff like that. I'm not quick to all of a sudden jump and say, hey, all right, this lot is 0.85, 0.89. To me, it's not an acre. You don't have an acre. We put in specifically an acre for specific reasons. You don't meet that. You just don't. And I have a hard time putting in a new regulation that's, how old is it, Rick?
1.5 years.
It's 1.5 years old. Now, all of a sudden to now start making changes to it because you feel that Starbucks or a pizza place or something wants to come in there. I'm not comfortable with it yet to make that change. Now, again, there's 5 of us. I'm one. I feel that regulation is very strong the way it was written originally. I think the 1 acre is very fair. And in my opinion, I'm going to go by the regulation that we set 1.5 years ago that I think is extremely fair, that took a lot of time to put into effect. And I want to see it through for a little bit before 1.5 years later going ahead and start making a bunch of changes to it.
I understand. May I ask a question?
Feel free.
So in situations where you have pre-existing non-conforming lots that don't comply with the underlying zoning regulation square footage, but they can comply with other aspects of it, what would be the avenue for somebody to develop that lot?
So we were asked about a property in a different area where contractor came in front of us as well as the engineer came in front of us, and we as a commission stood by that we didn't feel that it was proper to put a commercial building in a residential area, so on and so forth. And then they came back and they made the changes accordingly to what we wanted. Again, I'm just not comfortable today that 1.5 years ago we put in a regulation that is a big regulation. It's not a small regulation. It changed our town.
Yeah. It absolutely changed our town.
It flooded our town. We've had people like you,
We've had other people come here that want to now build in this town.
and I'm all for it. And
As you drive around the streets of this town, there's a lot of construction going on because of this. I'm not ready to make that change.
that's just me. I think the way it's written is written very well. I think it's written strong. I think it's written for the future of this town. And I apologize that you guys are in a property that doesn't fit.
So appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Westcott.
I don't want to miss the opportunity to bring in a great national brand like Starbucks. I understand the regulations were written and we wrote them not long ago. And this is, I think, a small tweak. I don't have a problem per se with it. It's a tough lot, like you said, to build on, and to just leave that, in my opinion, blight style dwelling there is not doing anybody any service. As of right now, current property owner at 255 Monroe Turnpike, are they paying taxes on 0.85 acres of land?
Ask my client that question.
We got to check title records. It probably be 0.7 before we did the discontinuance.
It's probably about, according to my clients, probably in the 0.7 something range, because the assessment got caught up with the, that additional land from the road.
We may want to check with the assessor and see where that's going to wind up, because that'll help clear up some of what Commissioner Ambrosi's asking about, that whole gray area as far as the land on the street area.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea as well. I mean, one of the other things that, we've presented the application, it's been noticed. So there's notice out to the public that this application is sort of a potential text amendment is up for review. I can also attempt to revise this a little bit before another meeting that would allow it to apply to limited parcels, but still meet the uniformity requirements that's required by the state statutes. And in that instance, for example, it would apply to parcels that maybe are within a certain distance of 111 and Purdy Hill Road or something along those lines, so that rather than now every parcel that's 0.85 acres or above that could in the LOR or that could take advantage of this special development district overlay, they wouldn't be able to, because they don't meet the other requirements. So there's a lot of time and effort and energy and brain power spent in drafting these regulations and plan of conservation and development. And I understand that. I sit on a lot of different boards myself over the years. So in that particular case, it would not, obliterate this regulation for every parcel that came in. It would be very specific, and you could look at it more on a case-to-case basis. So that would be one way if the commission was willing to do that. It's just with this parcel, like I said, and Commissioner West, I appreciate your comments. It's a difficult parcel, and no, we do not have 1 acre. That's right. So.
And we don't want to, further convolute our regulations at this point, or potentially, be in a situation where we're, spot zoning or taking on any liability in that regard. But I also think that this change would not affect too many lots that I can think of that's going to change. Anybody can think of one, I'm all ears.
Some lots it will affect. I know a bunch of them. I could tell you a bunch that it will affect. There's lots that will affect. I know where they are. So it's not just that one. There's a bunch. There's a ton on Main Street.
On our main corridors?
Yeah.
There's a ton on Main Street. I know that for a fact. So it's not just going to affect one. It's going to affect a bunch. I already know that. I know one already.
Okay, which one?
The liquor store that's right next door to the car wash. That's non-conforming.
That's real small, right?
Real small lot, yeah.
Is it 0.85?
It has it behind it. It doesn't have the frontage. So I'm just saying to you is that you start changing it.
Yeah.
Better watch what you change.
Well, if we do change this right now, just the first part, all this would be allowing was those properties to come in front of us and request a change to that zone, correct?
That's correct.
And then we would still.
Oh, if they conform into that area, then why would they have to come here and?
Because they're not, because they still have to then change to the.
We had a minimum requirement.
It doesn't matter because they're not designated as an SDD, right?
They self-apply
You still have to.
for an
apply in front of
SDG.
us.
Yes.
You do, right.
Yeah.
And I grant that, okay? And so it's like everything else. Are we gonna pick one that we're gonna approve, and we're gonna pick one we're not gonna approve? This one we're not gonna approve? Everybody has the same thing. Everybody has the same situation. They own a lot, the lot's too small, and so they can't get the requirements, so now they're in front of us to change the lot size. Well, either you buy more land, purchase more land, purchase the other property, but that's not this commission's concern. We put a regulation in. We started it off at 1 acre. I believe that's what it was, right? And that's where it stood. Now, if we change it, like we did, the same thing with what he withdrew his application. That started to open up a can of worms all over the town. Somebody else came in front of us, some other person came in front of us, and now he took that and went away with it. You just can't sit here and keep changing for each individual thing.
I agree 100%.
A certain thing, it affects the whole town. It just doesn't affect one piece of property. That's the same thing with taking the regulations and cutting them out. It affects the whole town. It's just not one piece of property.
What is the likelihood of acquiring more land from the abutting property? The likelihood of acquiring more land? We're in discussions with that other commercial neighbor who's on Purdy Hill Road to try to bring us either closer or up to the 1 acre. So we're hopeful that we're going to be very close. But Commissioner Condon, I believe, made a good point on that. It doesn't allow us to develop by changing this regulation. It just allows us to bring the application for the SDD in front of the commission. It doesn't give us the right to do anything other than actually make the application. And you can still meet the uniformity requirements, so you're not approving this one, and it's kind of confusing. Why was this one approved and this one was not approved? We can revise this proposed change to still meet the uniformity requirement of the statutes, but limit the number of properties that are, that can take advantage of it to distance from, Purdy Hill Road and Route 111, where it might end up to be just one or two properties.
Right. I don't want to. You want to sit here and you want to start saying, "Oh, we're going to do it here, but we can't do it here. We're going to do it here, we can't do it here." I don't. If you guys are cool with that, man, that's just straight crap. But that's me.
So, I understand the comments there. I'm not.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
Here's what you got to understand. For me, Bruno, 1 acre. That's what I see. We wrote this a year and a half ago. It's an infant into this town. So for you to convince me, may God come down and talk to me. Okay?
Okay, I'm
good.
I understand.
I apologize for cutting into Rob's time.
His thought. That's all. Commissioner Luco.
I kind of am riding the fence as well. I understand why we put 1 acre in. I understand our thoughts at the time. I'm also struggling because I also don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? The word is late. Over restrict those that don't have the ability to buy or expand out. You guys are surrounded by road on 3 sides. I would like to see if the other development would give you a little bit so we can make the 1 acre, but I'm also concerned with spot zoning and again, opening this up to other, like Leon said, other properties where you may have the same problem. So I'm a little on the fence, to be honest. But no questions, just thoughts.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I think something needs to be done with this property as well, and I don't want to split hairs, 0.85 or 1 acre. There's nothing magical about 4,600 and how many feet? I mean, really. So anyway, let's go to the public.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone here tonight that would like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand and come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Derek Talbot, 202 F Wingate Circle, Monroe, Connecticut. I was very concerned about the definition of the very end of Spring Hill Road. I used to be a resident there for many years. There's still 2 families on that little dead end section of Spring Hill Road. And I'm pretty sure the town plows the road every time there's a snowstorm. I don't think the 2 families that are out there plowing that dead end portion of Spring Hill. So I don't think that whatever that amount of acreage is should be included in what they're talking about. I'd like the board to take that under consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, in the back. Please speak into the microphone, address the commission, just your name and address.
Good evening, Chairman and members. My name is Karen Maseko, and I live at 360 Spring Hill Road in Monroe. My husband and I have been residents of Monroe for over 40 years. We've seen Monroe grow from a small New England town to a growing community, attracting families who want to raise and educate their children here, as well as attracting businesses to help support the town and meet the needs of the resident. What is concerning to us and to other friends and residents who share these troubling views is that the apparent development plan for Monroe is focused on increasing the tax base rather than meeting the needs of the community. This short-term thinking is chipping away at the fabric of the community and will have negative long-term impact. Let me ask, how many fast food restaurants and similar food establishments do our residents need? Take a look at a stretch of only 0.3 of a mile on Route 111, starting with Panera Bread. We have 2 new food establishments at the end of Purdy Hill scheduled to open in the next few months. Then move on to Dunkin' Donuts opening in the Village Square Shopping Center, as well as Dairy Queen, Monroe Falafel, Mary Lou's, Great Fortune, Jenny's Pizzeria, McDonald's, and Bill's Drive-In. That's 11 fast food establishments in 0.3 of a mile. It doesn't end there. Just continue on up to Route 111 for a quarter mile for another handful. Tell me, do we need, and please focus on the word need, another fast food restaurant? We are not against progress, but we are against short-sightedness on the needs and direction of this community, which we love. I also want to add that the addition of another fast food restaurant at the end of our road will have a negative impact on our property value. And yes, that is important to us. We have faithfully paid our taxes for over 40 years. And as retirees, the equity in our home is part of our future financial security. In sum, we ask the board to do what is best for the future of the town of Monroe. Approval of a fast food restaurant is not in the best interests of this community and ultimately will detract rather than attract new residents and other businesses to Monroe. Thank you for listening to this.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience today? Yes.
Good evening. My name is David Basilio, and I live at 6020 Main Street, Stratford, Connecticut. I'm a real estate investor and own several properties on Route 111, including the Purdy Hill Bakery and Deli building, the Rite Aid, and a small office building. I just want to let the commission know, after hearing your comments, I agree with you. This is the wrong venue for this part of the application. I'm the former chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Stratford for 5 years. And this is a classic appeal for the ZBA. It's a triangular shaped lot. It's an undersized lot. It has a lot of age. I believe the attorney has several hardships. that if they choose, they can go before the zoning board of appeals. But to change the zoning regulations, I'm hearing from most of the board members, is the wrong thing to do. So I just wanted to share my opinion on this particular part of the application.
Thank you, Mr. DeCilio. Anyone else here tonight? In person, or is anyone online? Please raise your hand. We see the online participants. Anyone online that would like to address the commission tonight on this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll get back to the applicant. Do you want to close this portion of the public hearing? We'll leave it open.
I'd like to leave it open if the commission would allow.
Want to move on to the next?
I would, and I might just make one comment to follow up to Mr. Ambrosi. I apologize, it wasn't on it was Connecticut General Statute 13A-49 is the discontinuance statute, and the case law related to that, you can get that information. We'd like to leave it open.
All right, then we'll move on to the second portion or the next public hearing, ZCA/RAA 2023-02. And this is the petition for a zone map regulation change to rezone the property to SDD number 3.
That's correct. And I had read that narrative at the beginning of this conversation, so, tied it to the various aspects of your plan of conservation and development. So I don't know if there's any further comments about whether this proposed regulations and shifting to the SDD3 is in compliance with the plan, or if there's any comments or thoughts on that in addition to what we just heard.
Are there any questions? So we're going to see the SEP next, which would be the actual diagram of the property and egress.
So I do have a question.
Go ahead, sorry.
So you kind of mentioned your opinion that if we were not to grant the previous application you just came in front of, that you believe that the zone you have being pre-existing non-conforming is something that we could still approve would it be approved as an SDD, or would it be a different, you get what I'm trying to get at, or would it just be a different approval of the site plan without this change also?
Yes, yeah. So I think there's a couple of different ways to approach problems or issues, or, when you're framing the problem, just like the gentleman who spoke was the realtor in town. There are different avenues. You can apply for a zone text amendment. If you have hardships, you could apply for a variance. You may or may not get the variance for that hardship. But in this case, there is the zone text amendment for reducing the requirement of 1 acre, which is what you just heard and discussed. There's also, you have within your regulations already a non-conforming lot regulation that says maybe a building or structure may be erected as a permitted use on any existing lot of record, which does not conform to the minimum required lot area, which is what we have here. We don't conform to the LOR standard, and we don't conform to the application for the design district standard. But so this regulation and regulations like these are, they're not waivers, but they take into consideration the fact that, especially in New England, there's a lot of old pre-existing non-conforming lots that are of odd shapes because they were either goat paths running against them and they're triangular, or they're undersized, or they're not shown on any approved subdivision map or map of record. And it allows that property, if it sits in that zone, to build a structure as long as you comply with the other zoning regulations. So in this particular case, the regulations we would comply with would be the SDD3 regulations.
So you would still need the zone change, but not necessarily the rest amendment. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners on this portion? Okay, are there any comments from the audience on the second portion of this application? Any questions for the online audience? Seeing none, would you like to leave this portion of the application open as well?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Let's move along to the SEP, final portion of the application. SEP/SDP 2023-07. This is the actual application and for the permit to
So,
Yes, the applicant.
so, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Mark Grocki. I'm a senior engineer with VHB. Our offices are located at 100 Great Meadow Road in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And I am responsible for the site plan civil design aspect of this application. Here with me, like we mentioned before, is Charlie Baker. He'll be discussing a little bit of the traffic impacts and the traffic study that gets submitted for the application. So just to go over the existing site, so everybody's familiar. Zoom in here a little bit. So the subject property is 255 Monroe Turnpike. North is kind of page right. We have Spring Hill Road to the south here, Monroe Turnpike to the east. This is the discontinued portion of Spring Hill Road right here with the cul-de-sac. The neighboring property to the north here, this is where that Chipotle and Jersey Mike's, I believe it is. It's currently under construction right now. So they already have the building pads set up. And these are the two abutting residential properties to the north here. So our property is very minorly developed. There is an existing residential house on the property here. It is vacant, and the majority of the property here is all undeveloped, overgrown shrubs and trees. Not the most sightly at this time. Again, like Attorney Christine mentioned, currently this is an LOR district. The abutting parcel here is LOR. Abutting parcel to the north of residential. Parcel to the south here is also LOR. The entire corridor here on this west side is part of the MDD Main Street Design Development District overlay, and we're here to take advantage of that regulation and propose our own SDD number 3 zone within that overlay district for 255. And then just to orient ourselves to the east here, this is the Goodwill store. So our proposed development, let's zoom in here a little bit. So what we are proposing, it's about a 2,500 square foot Starbucks restaurant with a drive-through. Just to the east side here will be an outdoor patio table area, about 350 square feet. The drive-through for the facility will be on this west side here. We are proposing 30 parking spaces. We've had many discussions with Starbucks. We feel very comfortable and adequate with the number of parking required or presented for the site. Site access is going to be proposed from 2 curb cuts. One will be a restricted driving right out on Monroe Turnpike. Another curb cut will be a full access off of Spring Hill Road, pushing as far back from the intersection as we could here. With the drive-through lane and the drive-through pickup pushed on the west side of the building, we really tried to maximize the queuing for the building and for the drive-through operation as much as we could. What we do is we have kind of a double lane configuration, tapering down to a single lane. Right here is the menu board where a patron would order for the drive-through service and then swing it around and pick it up at the window here. This total amount of queuing that we can get within this drive-through configuration is 15 queues. And if any queuing were to spill out into the drive aisle in front of the building, we can get about 5 more queues for about 20 queued vehicles. We did have some preliminary discussions with Connecticut DOT because Monroe Turnpike is a state roadway. DOT is willing to work with us for a proposed curb cut right in, right out here. And it is important to note, and Charlie will go into this a little bit more, DOT actually literally rewrote the book on drive-through queuing for morning coffee shops like Dunkin' Donuts. And even DOT recognizes that there is a higher capacity queue needed for these types of establishments. The DOT requirement is for 14 queues. We exceed that at 15, and we actually have a little bit more storage in the drive aisle or the drive lane here up to 20. So we feel we have more than an adequate number of queuing positions to keep all the traffic on site. We specifically made this island configuration here, so if anybody were to come in from Monroe Turnpike, nobody can kind of sneak in and short circuit the queue. Anybody would have to come all the way back around and enter the queue at the appropriate location on the south side of the building here. Dumpster refuse is located in this far western corner of the site. The refuse area will be completely in an enclosed enclosure. CMU block wall is proposed, and you can see a number of arborvitae trees proposed around the dumpster enclosure for additional screening. And you can see right here, it kind of gets a little bit lost in our thick property line to see the boundary, but we are proposing a 6-foot high white vinyl screening fence to screen from the neighbors to the north to extend a little bit extra screening fence buffer along the north property line here. There was, I think at one point somebody brought up utilities, stormwater management, and water and septic. Obviously the existing lot is very pervious, it's all landscaped. We're proposing a lot of impervious, so we are proposing an underground stormwater management system, catch basins with deep sumps and hoods. We did receive engineering comments. There are some minor tweaks we do have to do to the engineering design, but all of it is nothing insurmountable, very straightforward comments we can address for the stormwater management system, so we feel very comfortable with that. We are proposing a septic system south end of the site here, so we have adequate septic capability, and through this northern portion of the area here, there is a 12-inch water main from Aquarian. So as Attorney Christina had mentioned previously, we are working with Aquarian for the necessary easements for the property to continue their water main through our site, so we do have direct water access to that water main. And a couple other just kind of notes I wanted to mention on record before I hand it over to Charlie. Because we are disturbing over half acre of land, we do have a fully engineered erosion and sediment control plan. Silt fence, straw bales around the site, all catch basins will be protected. There is a construction entrance, stabilized construction entrance to the site, concrete washout area, so we do have an adequate erosion and sediment control plan engineered for the site. All the site lighting is designed to be for site safety. Again, we did receive comments from the town engineering staff. There was one recommendation from town staff I'd like to address about the site lighting, and they recommended that along this northern property line here, that we should try to achieve a quarter of a foot candle. A candle is a measurement of light luminescence, so 0.25 along the property line. We exceed that currently only because the Starbucks minimum standard is to have 1.5 foot candle for site safety and illumination. So yes, the site's a little bit tight. We are exceeding that quarter of a foot candle over the property line, not by a lot, but we do feel that site safety at that 1/2 foot candle threshold for Starbucks, what they desire is more, would be more adequate, more fit, that you guys can allow that. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So I think at this point, I'd certainly be more than happy to answer any direct questions on the site plans. Those of you interested to hear more about traffic, Charlie.
Yeah, why don't you go on with the full presentation, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. For the record, I'm Charlie Baker, Senior Traffic Engineer with VHB, and we prepared a traffic impact and access study for the development. And I'd just like to provide a brief overview of the study process and findings. So the target study area included the intersections of Monroe Turnpike at Spring Hill Road, as well as Monroe Turnpike at Purdy Road. We collected traffic counts at each of those two intersections during the weekday morning peak, the weekday afternoon peak, and the Saturday midday peak period. Those times were selected because those are the peak traffic periods of the surrounding roadway, as well as the peak traffic periods of the Starbucks development. So those would be the time periods where the development would show the greatest impacts on the surrounding roadways. Once we collected the existing traffic volumes, we also reached out to town staff to find out information on other sources of background traffic growth in the area to incorporate in the study. As Commissioner Ambrosi pointed out earlier, one such development that was pointed out to us is the development on the corner of Purdy Road that is currently under construction that has those restaurants. So we incorporated the traffic volumes generated by that development, as well as one other development that was pointed out to us by town staff, into our future traffic projections. And we also added a 1% growth rate to the existing traffic counts, just to account for other sources of ambient traffic growth in the area that might occur. So those background traffic builds were added to the existing traffic counts to develop the future no-build traffic volumes. We then forecast the traffic generated by this project using industry standard ITB trip generation calculations. And based on our forecast, the project is expected to generate 128 vehicle trips per hour during the weekday morning peak, 56 trips per hour during the weekday afternoon peak, and 110 trips per hour during the Saturday midday peak. And that's the net new trips added onto the surrounding roadway network. So we distributed those site-generated traffic volumes onto the no-build networks to forecast the future traffic volumes under build conditions with this project. And then we conducted capacity analysis at each of the study intersections using industry standard Synchro software under existing conditions as well as under future conditions to evaluate the anticipated impacts of the project. And our analysis results indicate that the Spring Hill Road intersection currently operates at level of service A during all peak periods, and the Purdy Hill Road intersection currently operates at level of service C or better during peak traffic periods. Under future build conditions with this project, the Spring Hill Road intersection is expected to continue operating at the same level of service A. The Purdy Hill Road intersection will continue operating at the same level of service C during the weekday afternoon and the Saturday midday periods. However, we are projecting a minor level of service degradation to level of service D during the weekday morning peak. And that level of service, that slight degradation is in part due to the traffic generated by this development, and it's in part due to the traffic generated by the adjacent development on the corner. So together, those are causing a slight level of service degradation. We reviewed this and we feel that there's sufficient capacity in the area and that no offsite mitigation is needed. So overall, even though the project will cause slight increases and delays during that weekday morning peak, we feel there's surplus capacity. So our conclusion is the project will not have significant negative impacts on the surrounding roadway. However, I do want to point out that this is a state road and both of these traffic signals are under state jurisdiction, and we will be submitting this project to the state under the encroachment permit process for that proposed driveway. So the state will also review our traffic impact study, and because those roads and intersections are under their jurisdiction, they will have the opportunity to comment on the results of our study. And if they disagree and feel that improvements are needed, that will be under their purview. So it's going to be happy to take any questions on traffic.
Do you have anything else? Or got questions?
No, like I said, if you have any questions related to the site plans, happy to answer anything for traffic.
All right, we'll start with questions. Commissioners. Right. Commissioner Smith, Anna.
Okay, on the Spring Hills side of the building where the drive-through queue is going to come up on the side of the building. What's the distance and the width of that drive, especially when that little island comes up? No, to the left.
Right here or right here?
No, the others. Keep going.
Right here?
There, right there, yeah.
24 feet wide.
No, the corridor to come
down to
your extra 5 queuing
In there. Come and take a right.
How many queuing spots do you have behind that building? Right there.
I'm sorry, is the question the width?
Can you queue up?
Was your question the width? Or?
Let him, no, that's like he was asking.
Yeah. So the cars are going to queue up. So how much distance do you have for someone to get around that?
Right. This is a 17-foot wide drive aisle. And this conforms to your local zoning regulations for 60-degree angled parking with a one-way configuration.
What about that little island that's jetting out?
Right here now?
No, up. Right there.
This entire drive out here is 17 feet.
Okay. 17 feet. Okay. And as far as the, you mentioned a 6-foot fence for screening for the neighbors. Will there be any large plantings as well? Evergreen trees and whatnot?
Right now, the arborvitae trees are screening the dumpster area. The screening fence is going to come down and kind of hug the property line here. So we can add maybe some more plantings through this area here, but it might get a little bit too tight and choked down. That's why we have the 6-foot high fence along the length of it.
I think adding a row of trees behind the fence would be better screening.
When you say behind the fence, you say the north side or the south side?
And wherever is feasible.
They don't own the north side.
Right, that's,
Well, inside, obviously, then.
So the south side.
so we can certainly add more plantings until about this location here, but it gets just a little bit too tight with the sidewalk. Continue, that's why we want to go with a nice high 6-foot fence.
That's all I have.
So the east side of the building, where the queuing kind of splits off, how do the drivers navigate that exactly?
Yeah, it's just Starbucks is a new standard for this area. They've started to roll out this kind of double lane configuration queuing into a single lane. They're more than comfortable, and I've actually fought this with Starbucks. They said, no, this is how we see it operate. This is good. Patrons, once they understand the area, they get familiar with it, they start to weave.
So you like that, you kind of zipper in basically.
Sorry?
So you kind of zipper in basically is the idea? All right, so a lot of people being nice before they have their coffee. And then to kind of echo Dominic, up at the top there, I think if you were to do the plantings, it'd probably be nicer for the neighbors if you could do the plantings on the north side of the fence. Maybe move the fence in a little bit. Not in the street, but you wouldn't want, do you think the neighbor wants to look at a fence or look at the trees?
But I don't think they have the room.
If you were to move the fence down closer to the driveway and then do
Driveway out.
yeah.
You're right on the border there, right? Your fence is gonna be right on the.
This shit's so tight, dude, it's not even funny.
If we were to propose an 8-foot high fence, would that be acceptable?
No, he's talking about the people not to look at the fence, to look at greenery instead of a fence.
Yeah, not gonna be able to fit both.
It's decorative fence.
Or something that you're gonna have to come up with a better design of that fence. There's not gonna be any, like, you still have residents that live across the way there.
Well, we could
would screen
we could
that
look
out.
into that.
Because, and obviously you don't have enough room to screen it. So your screening is gonna be the fence. You don't have any other way to put other screen there, it doesn't look like, so that's what I think Brian's saying.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting
So
at.
we'll take a look at that.
If you were to have room,
Yeah, that's it.
put the plants on the far side is what I'm saying.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
So, you done here? No. I just wanna ask one question.
Oh, yeah, the far part there, that's a right and left out and a right only in, up on Spring Hill, sorry. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's right on, I mean, you can certainly from Spring Hill take a left. But once you're in the site, you'd have to take a right because you.
Take a right there.
This is the do not enter, this is exit only for the drive-through.
And then that's, okay, and then you can take a right or a left
This is
out.
full access in, but as soon as you get in, you're gonna be.
You have to go right, got it. Okay, thank you.
So where's your drive-through gonna be?
Right here.
Right there's a drive-through. So you have to go around,
So if anybody were entering the site from the Spring Hill Road curb cut, enter, immediately turn right, come down, and then you're gonna enter the queue right here. The menu board for ordering is right here. And then swing it around counterclockwise around the building.
how about the ones that are coming off 111?
So 111, coming
All the way
in,
up.
this is a right in only. Coming all the way up through the bypass lane. And you could then circulate the site here, enter the queue.
So what do you do when people are coming off, when people are coming off 111 up there? You got stop bar, you got anything there? What do you got over there?
Yeah, there's a stop bar right here. People coming in would stop, so you make an appropriate maneuver and come back down.
So you could have,
How many cars?
you could have
can you-
3 cars there at one time. Don't interrupt. He interrupts me. I mean, we're a team. We know what's going on.
So how many cars can you queue up to? You have that on, you don't have a map of that? Like, how many cars do you queue?
Right in this here, we can get 7 to the menu board.
Yep.
And then when it branches off, we can get a total of 15 up to here.
15 total?
Yes.
How about to the backside?
And then if you were to continue to queuing up this way,
Yep,
you get 5 more.
5 more. Right.
So 20 total.
20 total. So what happens if it gets over, what happens with people coming off Spring Hill if that's filled up? What do they do there?
Yeah, they would have to wait.
They'd be blocking Spring Hill.
Well, I think what it really happens in reality at this time, human nature kicks in. If they see a long queue, they're really over Starbucks, they're gonna pull into a parking spot and walk home.
Well, nobody's gonna see a long queue.
But can they
You're not gonna see a long queue until you get in there. Right? How many
Starbucks is
spaces?
anticipating only 15. They need 15, they want 15. That's what they're anticipating here.
Right.
And like I said, if you're me, I enjoy Starbucks and I like it. If I see a long queue, this thing's all packed up, I'm gonna go park in a parking spot, order on my phone on the app, and then just go right in because it's gonna take a lot less time than waiting in the queue. That's just human nature.
And so you brought that plan in front of the state already and they're for 111 and they're with that driveway, they're
Yeah, they said they're willing to work with us with this configuration, yes.
with where that driveway sits?
Yes.
Is it no right turn off of Purdy Hill?
Well, Purdy Hill's a signalized intersection, so if you're stopped here at Purdy Hill, you can take a right or a left, it's a signalized intersection.
No, but I'm saying you can take a right-hand turn.
Yeah, you can take a right here.
So what's your distance from there to that? Yeah?
From to where our driveway is,
Yeah.
I believe it's over 100, about over 150 feet.
Okay, and you got good sight line because you just tore it all down anyway now, right? So,
Yeah, there's actually a sightline easement on our property in favor of DOT that essentially starts in this location here, which is, you can kind of see why our parking lots, it doesn't exactly follow parallel with the property line.
right,
Because we needed to make sure that there's no parked cars within the sight line.
right.
So if somebody was sitting here on Spring Hill Road, they want to take a right, they're going to look back left on Monroe Turnpike. So we made sure to keep all plantings, all these plantings specified here are less than 3 feet. You can have plantings less than 3 feet in the sightline easement, but obviously no parking spaces.
And they require one on the other side?
This side here,
Yeah.
it's not our property.
That's Jersey Mike.
There is a sightline easement here. I'm confused in the question.
There is? They have a sight line easement over there?
What's that?
There it is, yes.
They do over there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So this whole frontage has to be remaining.
I'm just worried about somebody coming off Purdy Hill and turning and somebody's trying to get out and they see it's a red light and they take a right out. You know what I'm saying? They take a right on Purdy Hill because I don't think it's no right turn on Purdy Hill. I think you take a right turn on Purdy Hill.
You mean off of Purdy Hill, off of 111?
Coming off Purdy Hill onto 111.
Yeah, you can take a right on red there, yeah.
Take a right on red. But I'm saying that people that are coming down, they see the light turn red on 111 side, they figure they can get out and somebody comes across Purdy Hill. That's because it's a close intersection. All right, that's all I have.
Commissioner Miney.
Pass.
I'm good. I'll give you a break. You don't want my question. Go ahead.
I've got a couple quintessential P and Z questions here to get going. The operating hours
I believe they're 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
to 11, and will the property be lit 24 hours? I mean, at night, all night, or what?
Well, I forget if the requirement for site lighting is, I don't believe the requirement for site lighting is to turn the site lights completely off overnight, but to establish a minimum for site safety overnight. So I believe it will be lit to a minimum.
Okay, some of the abutting neighbors may be concerned about that.
Well, all of our light fixtures are full cutoff, dark sky compliant, recessed LED. And again, we did provide a photometric study that doesn't project. Once you get past about 10, 15 feet beyond the property line,
That's it.
it just dies off.
Got it. Now, I think some of the traffic questions are coming from, the Starbucks down on White Plains Road in Trumbull. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
It's about a couple miles away.
Yeah. They're different markets, but they share a lot of similarities. And that drive-through gets very busy, to the point where I was on the phone. So I had to use the drive-through one day, and I was just blown away by how long people will actually wait to not get out of their car. They've actually got a driveway area that goes right through the middle of the queuing cars. Obviously, that wouldn't be the case here, but this particular pad would never allow for that many cars that are down on White Plains Road. I don't think you're really going to be able to have an answer to this question from a traffic perspective, but do those roadways share similar volumes of traffic?
I don't know.
It might be good information for us to have just to try to gauge what we're looking at here, because what I'm seeing, I like what you did with the site. You made the best use of the space for what you have, for sure. But I'm seeing the traffic coming around and potentially going right around that corner and coming up Spring Hill going towards 111. I could picture people waiting that long to go in there and get coffee. And that would potentially cause a backup on 111.
Yeah, I think I can speak to this, and obviously every site is different and there are anomalies, but.
There's a lot of what ifs, I understand that.
Yeah, but the Connecticut DOT years ago recognized that there were drive-throughs all over the state that were significantly under-designed. The one in Middletown near our old office location routinely backed up onto the road. So DOT has long recognized that this has been an issue at a lot of drive-throughs. So they did a comprehensive study of drive-throughs, coffee shops throughout the state. And the conclusion of their study is that they're now recommending a minimum drive-through queue of 14 vehicles for any coffee shop drive-through. I believe that was mostly Dunkin' Donuts. So we are exceeding that 14 car queue. We have 15 neatly within the drive-through lane, and then up to 20 accommodated further on the site without backing up onto the road. So, and independent of that DOT investigation, Starbucks was recommending 15 based on their own experience. So based on the information we have, we think that the queuing is adequate. So I think, and we think it's appropriately designed for this.
And it very well may be. And the other, in all fairness, the other Starbucks that I'm talking about does not offer that wraparound feature. So everything is pretty much dumping straight out.
Right.
So this is going to allow for a lot more cars wrapping around the structure as opposed to the other unit that I'm thinking about. So that may hopefully ease some of the burden that this could present. But as far as other questions, I think that's all I have. Do you?
So can you explain the double queuing for me just a little bit? Because we went through this with McDonald's for a little bit. But they're not double,
They have two stores though. That's what's.
double, because my only concern, my minor concern. Is Saturday mornings in specific, because I will admit I'm a soccer mom. This place is going to be jamming around 8 to 10 a.m. with people trying to get food and coffee before sports, et cetera. How do they know, like when they come down to along Spring Hill, they have to just know to go in one of the two lanes and then siphon back? It's kind of like 84, you go from like 3 lanes to 2 lanes back to 3?
Yeah, there's all these directional arrows right at this. Okay. You can't see right here, but there is a sign right here that says drive through.
Okay.
Take a right. And do not enter sign right here.
Okay.
So obviously, we have the striping, but also big do not enter signs, so you're not going forward. But so immediately, you have the directional signage to take a right coming down, and right here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more.
Can you show some of the drafting plans?
Yes, I can.
If you give us a little better perspective, I think, on size.
Thank you for zooming.
So here's the first enter welcome signage right here.
Okay.
It'll have the arrow for the drive-through. This is the do not enter signage right here. Coming around, somebody, imagine you're driving down this drive aisle, right? You immediately can see on the left, you have the drive-through entrance sign right here.
Okay.
And then also one on this side.
Okay.
And then here's the clearance bar, so it's kind of like a double clearance.
So it'll be marked. Okay.
Yeah, and you can see right here, drive-through entry. This will be a pavement marking, so physically painted on the ground, drive-through entry here, drive-through entry. These will be those flexible bollards, so it's not a concrete fill bollard, it's like a flexible PVC where somebody does run it over.
Okay.
So that just kind of helped delineate between the lanes until it opens up and gets wide enough for a lane, a vehicle to actually merge here. So like I said, Starbucks is very particular about having the seventh queued car at the ordering point because they understand that once that seventh car is there and then coming to actually pick up your order gives them enough time to prep your order.
Yeah.
So they got it down to a science. So coming back around, you have up to car number 12 at the end point here, and then you'd have 13, 14, and 15 in the second lane. So really, I think what would happen is you probably never see the entire lane filled up. I think people start to recognize once you see one car here, and you see another free area open, you're going to start
alternating.
Like Mr. Condon said, the kind of zippering effects back and forth.
Okay. And where is, can you zoom in again? Because I don't have good eyes tonight.
Yep.
Where are the parking spots? I see, are there any right in front? Okay, so they're along the side.
So you have 9 spots here. These first 4 are kind of the quick time limited from, Uber Eats, was it DoorDash?
Is that for pickup too, for those of us that order ahead of time?
Or if you have the app, just right in here, they designated this like the form to pick up. So
Okay.
park here. 88 spaces to the 88 accessible route here.
Okay.
You're certainly free to park next to it, 2 more down here, and then you wrap around another 2 down here, and then another 16 to the end here, and you're putting 2 more.
On these cars, I'm sure you've tested, if people can back out of these spots, even if there's people queued up?
Yes.
And where's the front entrance to the building? Like where are we all walking in?
So there's one entrance on the south side of the building here.
Okay.
You kind of see the double door. And like I said before, this is a patio table area.
Okay.
And there is a, but I think the main entrance. So we have a floor plan.
Is there a sidewalk that's going to go from where the quick pickups are right to that, a crosswalk, I mean, from where the quick pickups are right to that front door? To bring awareness to people coming in to slow down in case anyone's trying to get across?
Not at the moment, but we can certainly consider something.
Okay.
I mean, we do have the crosswalk.
Good job.
Yeah, I just don't know if people are going to get out of the car all the way down there, walk all the way up, cross over and walk all the way back down again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could look into adding sidewalk and crosswalk.
Okay.
We've done that for other Starbucks.
All right. And what about deliveries? What time of day? Or is there enough room in here for these trucks to get around
Yeah,
comfortably?
so kind of the benefit of this layout too is most deliveries will be coming, we've looked at some of the routing, will be coming this way from Spring Hill Road. But what a delivery vehicle would do, this will actually be a mountable.
Spring Hill Road's the other way.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's for, yeah.
Monroe Turnpike.
Sorry.
That's 111.
I know what you meant.
So we could accommodate a WB50 tractor trailer coming into the site here.
Okay.
What they would do is accommodate the bypass lane. This loading area, the regulations require a 12 by 50 loading area, but we're much more than exceeding that with the striped area here. So a loading vehicle can easily park their vehicle here. That was actually an engineering comment too. So when we respond to the engineering comments, I can provide, if you'd like to see an actual plan.
Yeah.
We can provide that, but a truck would be parked in the loading area here. Utilize the sidewalk to come down, that's why we have a crosswalk here to come down to the back door here. That'd be the loading entrance. Then a WB50 can back up slightly and then exit, take this, take their left onto Spring Hill Road and access the signal.
Me being annoying. Okay, can you zoom back in again, please?
No, that's
So when you're entering from Spring Hill Road, we can't cut out that island at all, right? Because my fear or my concern is, now, I've been to a lot of Starbucks, I'm gonna be honest. I've never seen more than 20 cars in a queue. If we happen to have 25 cars going up to Spring, can somebody get in here to go park to go in? Or are they gonna be stuck just waiting for that drive up line to process through?
Yeah, again, I think 20 is on the screen here. Starbucks is very comfortable with the 15.
Yeah.
If it happens, I suppose there would be traffic in the Spring Hill.
Okay.
I can't.
Yeah. And my last question, I promise. Is there a sidewalk along 111?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that was a staff comment.
Okay.
But we do have a proposed sidewalk.
That's all. Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll go to the public, last chance on this up. Text
Not the
application.
last chance
Okay.
today.
Are there any members of the public here? Raise your hand, please come up. Name and address again.
Okay. Derek Talbot, 202F Wingate Circle, Monroe. I'm speaking on behalf of my father who lives at 257 Spring Hill Road, Monroe. If you can put the picture back up on the screen here, I'll point out some of the discrepancies.
Let us know what, and we'll.
Okay. Well, on the side where it says Spring Hill Road discontinued.
Yes.
There's two family houses there. Their only access to a road is what's labeled the discontinued portion of Spring Hill Road. I'm pretty sure the town plows that every winter because otherwise they have no way of getting outside their driveway. At the location up here in the upper left-hand corner with this proposed entrance to Spring Hill Road, we have a speeding problem on Spring Hill Road. I've been to the police department a few times to request help on that. Except for my father, myself, and my sister, pretty much everybody else is going 45, 50 miles an hour. People coming around the corner here to get in, you're gonna have car accidents. I guarantee it. No way around that because of the speeding problem. Another thing is putting the dumpster up here. It's kind of a slap in the face to the two families that live there, even with the fences and all that. Didn't hear any comments about we're going to police the property and clean up any trash. Didn't hear one word about that. Same thing with the entrance here. It's a very short distance, Purdy Hill Road. When you have the traffic getting backed up here, you're going to cut down one of the two lanes of travel on Route 111 heading southbound. I don't know what you're going to do about that. Didn't hear any mention of that. Also, with this discontinued portion, I don't know if they're counting that as part of their acreage for their lot, but you can't take that road away. That's still maintained by the town of Monroe. You can check your public works department and see if that's the case. So therefore, you've got no room to put any fence or natural greenery boundary there. So I see a lot of problems with what's being proposed here. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here tonight that would like to comment on this application? Yes, come forward, please, name and address. Your record.
My name is Bernie Mazeko. I'm Karen's husband. And our 360 Spring Hill Road is right across the street here. We put the map back up here again. I'll show you where we live. They're talking about the two houses over in this area right here, the residences. On an extension part of Spring Hill Road. The connection that we put in here is actually listed as Spring Hill Extension. Spring Hill Road still continues all the way up this section here. We live on the corner here right next to the dentist. So we see this every day. The way the road is being plowed it is being plowed every winter and every snowstorm. His driveway, to get to his house, he's going to need the access to that road. Because I don't know if it's going to be considered part of half of the street. But the line's going to go up the middle, if that's been considered. But he's going to have some problems having access to the two houses right there. My concern is coming around here. I mean, this portion of the connection was put in, they put a 7-degree, we've been there over 40 years. So when they put this section in, our house was initially part of this property. This part of the property here was divided up when the daughter got married. And we're, you know, the next to the bed. So we're actually part of that same parcel. That's why we're interested in seeing what's gonna happen here. When you put this road in here, the car banked it at a 7-degree angle. So it's like a little Daytona. Cars come flying around there. I pull out on my driveway and I back the boat in there. And the cars are going very fast, 40, 45 miles an hour. So the traffic issue is going to be a problem.
The posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour for your interest.
I know. I live there. I see that sign every day. How many people follow the posted speed limit?
Well, except for me, you and my dad, probably nobody else.
But I have to stop right there anyway. But I think it's going to be a problem with the way the road's designed and banked. I would have preferred when you're driving in off 111 here to take a right-hand turn in. The road tilts this way right away, so you should be able to drive in there. So you see part of that. So there are some issues with that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to comment on this application? Is anyone online that would like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Okay. Up to you.
Thanks, for the record, Kevin Crusade. I'm just going to speak briefly. I don't know, Mr. Schultz, if you can just pull that back up where it shows Spring Hill Road portion discontinued. So once it was discontinued, I think that was effective in November or January timeframe when that was recorded on the land records, and I'll provide that information in the next hearing. Town would no longer have any responsibility on that road. However, the abutting property owners have a right of access for easement for access, easement for utilities, and that's included in part of that statute where they maintain the access rights to that portion of the road. So as part of the proposal, it's not shown here, but as part of the discussions originally, there was the applicant had offered to construct driveways for those two parcels. We're still in discussion. One of the parcels is in an estate, and it's also in foreclosure, is my understanding, and it's not that attorney for that estate has not returned my emails, phone calls, or letters to discuss that conversation. So I don't know if there's not a fiduciary of that estate that has the ability, or somebody who has the ability to enter into an agreement, or they're going to wait until the estate settles out, or what's going on with that. But that was part of the discussion. But so they will still have access. This statute's designed so that parcels are not landlocked for access or utility purposes. But the town will not continue to maintain it. So I just wanted to highlight that part of it. I don't know any comments on that.
Yeah, I think just to kind of clarify too, again, Mark Rocky, VHB. So we do have designed access for the two abutting parcels. So this was the original kind of location where Spring Hill Road cut in. We're going to maintain a 20-foot wide throat for the two remaining driveways. So one driveway will remain at a 10 foot wide width coming down, and then his property actually enters right about here. So he will have a maintained driveway, and then entering this kind of reconfigured curb cut, and the neighboring parcel here will also have an approach coming in as well. So we do have designed on our developable parcel means of clear ingress and egress to those two existing houses. I think there was another comment about the the dumpster location, we actually did as much as we can to screen with the CMU enclosure and the arborvitae trees around it. We really didn't want to have the dumpster enclosure anywhere else in the front yard. Obviously, I know the site's tight, but I think we did the best we can with the land that we have given. And then I think there was another comment. There was another comment about if vehicles are entering here, what's going to happen if it backs up? There's really minimal to no chance any car is going to be backing up onto Monroe Turnpike here because you have such a long one-way throat up to the west portion of the property to swing it back around. So anybody coming in here is going to have to go all the way back up and around to enter the site would be useful to access the foundations.
So these driveways that you're proposing to construct, how will those be left? Stone, paved?
Paving.
Paving. Okay.
Perhaps you could discuss screening at the same time as construction of the driveways. Landscape screening on the other side of the fence.
Sorry, I thought we discussed that and we're going to look into that a little further.
No, he means when you discuss the driveways with the residents.
We'll talk with them about putting that up.
Oh, yeah.
So just to clarify for everybody, who will be responsible for plowing or snow removal on those driveways all the way out to Spring Hill Road?
This will be their.
That's a town road.
Not anymore, sir. That end was just not anymore. Since it was just discontinued, that portion is no longer the beginning of this year.
November.
Yeah, and it started in November, but as soon as that officially hit the land records,
Supposed to do, hire a private contractor.
that's what I'm trying to find out. But I know the town no longer plows
So
it.
the applicant has offered in talks with the staff in the town that they would maintain and plow those driveways for those adjacent property owners.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Nice.
Okay, then we'll keep the hearing open.
Yes.
One question before we move on?
Can you blow that picture up a little bit more for your engineer?
Which part?
The part down there where you have the two lanes. Your queue in there is two last lanes up to 15 cars.
Right here?
Yeah. Move over. You have a bypass lane over here? No.
Yeah, the bypass is on the outside of this island right here. So.
Okay, how about coming down alongside the building? How wide is that lane?
Yeah.
Not here. Go up on the other building where you're gonna.
You mean to the left side?
On the left side, yep. When you're coming down there, you have a bypass lane there?
The 17 feet wide is adequate for bypass. I mean, that conforms to the local zoning regulations for one-way traffic.
So if two cars down at the end queue up and the other one queues up next to it, you have a dedicated bypass lane, which you're gonna have to have.
Yeah, if there's a car's queued here, you can get around.
No, I understand that, but if you got 15, then you get 16, 17, two lanes, are they gonna block that road? Is there any way to prevent them from doing that?
So what prevents them from queuing?
What prevents them from queuing all the way up?
Corner?
What's to prevent that from happening on this plan?
I think human nature would understand.
Well, no human nature. We have problems at McDonald's. It's not human nature.
Maybe I'm misinterpreting the question.
No, I'm saying to you, what's to prevent two lanes from queuing up on that on the side of that road?
So just to clarify, the 15 queue is the expected queue that we can. So those additional 5 are really just a surplus for really heavy traffic times that we're expecting to be not expected. So.
No, we've been through this already at McDonald's. Okay, we're queuing onto the main road. Okay, so we have 2 lanes, and we've had problems, especially on a Saturday, where those lanes are blocked because of a lot of people go to drive-thrus now. They don't bother going inside the business anymore. They all go to drive-thrus. So I want to know how you're going to prevent the queuing behind that building, the 2 lanes.
Why don't you think about that and bring it back when you come back?
Maybe some sort of line or painting on the pavement.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to leave the hearing open
Yes, sir.
until our next meeting?
Yes, I'll provide some additional information.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have 2 more public hearings tonight. So would you want to keep moving? Our next public hearing is excavation and fill, EFP 2023-02, file number 112. This is 260 Spring Hill Road. This is a new application. We have notice. Do we have notices for the excavation and fill?
Yep. Planning and Zoning Commission, in accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, July 6th at 7 o'clock or soon thereafter. EFP 2023-02, file number 112, 260 Spring Hill Road, excavation and filling permit application for proposed site preparation for future building, driveway, and parking area at 260 Spring Hill Road, Assessor Map 006, Lot 006, Eldorado Holdings LLC, owner, Rose Tizio and Company LLC representative. Notice was published in Voices twice on June 21st and June 28th.
You have the exhibit?
Yes, exhibit number 1, application set plans 2, health department comments. 3, engineering comments. That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, for the applicant?
Evening, my name is Patrick Rose. I'm running the Tizio Company, 35 Brentwood Avenue in Fairfield, Connecticut. Our architect from the state of Connecticut, representing Eldorado Holdings. This matter. What we have for you, just to orient you to where we're talking about on the screen, is that Route 111 is at the bottom page, Technology Drive here. And this is the Cyber Park subdivision that was done back in the 90s to create Technology Drive and the three parcels here, which is 100 Technology Drive, story office building, 115 Technology Drive, which is a 3-story office building parking below, and then lot number 3, which is the parcel that is in Monroe. So what they had done is that this has become a town road, Technology Drive, and we've also done some improvements associated with creating turning lanes out on Route 111. We're getting into Technology Drive now. The other buildings were constructed. 100 was constructed in 97, and 115 was construction in 2005. Previously, we have come before this commission in 2006 for approval of an industrial building change of zone from residential to commercial, industrial, and then a building in 2006, which did not go forward. But I'll show you a quick site plan of it, just so it's similar to what we're talking about tonight for excavating. We've included a survey of the property of lot number 3. On that survey, we have shown topography, which pretty much ranges from 390 up to 460 in this location, northeast corner. We have wetlands on the property, which have been flagged. In this edge of the property is wetlands, and then back into this piece, which actually goes out to Spring Hill Road. That's where 260 Spring Hill Road comes from. And that piece goes all the way out there. There are wetlands back in here. Pipe, that also a pipe associated with
This is streaming. This is 24/7, 365.
There is a
Not just a pipe.
Sir, so you can't talk to him.
I'm sorry.
Don't need to talk.
I just had a point.
You'll have your turn at the end.
So that's the survey that we provided for the property. There's also wetlands on this side, the east side, which is relatively, it's a ditch, actually, a drainage ditch, which has an intermittent stream associated with that, which comes down the edge of the property. This is the site plan or grading plan from 2006 approval, where we changed the zone and got this light industrial building approved. There was 2 buildings connected by a loading dock, about 98,000 square feet. It also graded a roadway up and parking around the edge of this. So it was, it's not unlike what we're proposing for the property. Our current excavation and filling proposal is to remove material in the back section of the project to create pads for a future building site, driveway, and parking area. That will require cutting back on this slope here, leveling out this portion here, and then creating the road down and out, and then some filling associated with this area here. We provided all soil erosion control measures, keep groundwater or stormwater from leaving the site, and controlling it. With the drainage structures, they'll have maybe civil engineer go through. This, which I believe I gave you in black and white, it's not color, but it still depicts the amount of cut in certain areas of the project. These darker areas are 28, 25 feet, and then it ranges down to 12, and then there are areas of fill in these areas. What we're talking about associated with the amount of cut on the site is 64,000 cubic yards. The filling is about 20,000 cubic yards. We're talking about 43,000 plus or minus of cut having to come off the site in order to achieve the grading plan that I just showed. That's what we're looking at for this project, and something that the owner has been looking at doing for a long time, and has run across many hurdles that he's not been able to overcome. Some of them being sewer, getting into Trumbull. That's always been an issue, a bit problem. Some of them having approval and then having the market change associated with that. So we'll come back for this based on the fact that he's got several irons in the fire that for the site that would like to see it developed. And this is the first step in him developing this site. So I have Manny go through the transitions over.
Good evening, Manny Silva from Rose T-Zone Company, 35 Brentwood Avenue. I'm a registered civil engineer in the state of Connecticut. As Pat said, this was a parcel that was developed over as part of a larger subdivision. What we have here, as you can see, is there's kind of like a high spot in the property, kind of almost a knob, and then it tapers down to where it meets almost the elevation of currently of Technology Drive. So what we're proposing is basically to create some plateaus here where we can develop a building and a parking area around it. And to achieve that in this first phase of construction, to make it more palatable for tenants to come in and want to develop the site and move into this area, they would like to see kind of what is more of a developable site versus woods that is very up and down. So they can envision how their business can come into this. So what we're doing in the meantime is this phase 0, and what we're gonna do is just see if I can. What we're gonna do is have a soil erosion control plan during this cut and fill. What we want to do is stop any kind of rain, any kind of soil or when it rains during this phase of the project, not to come off the property, right? We want to contain everything on property, clean that storm water and retain it as much on property. And then so that anything that goes off the property is clean water and actually less water than there is today. So we want to increase that water quality and reduce that amount of peak volume. Some things that we're going to do, or what we're proposing is basically a silt fence ring around a reinforced silt fence ring around the property. So it's just not silt fence, which is that black fence you see during construction. We also have some stake hay bales behind it so that there's some structural rigidity to that fence due to the slopes that we have here. So that when there is a heavy rainstorm, it hits that fence and knock it over. I'll show you the detail in a minute. We have some stockpiles for topsoil that will be generated on site, and that also has a silt fence ring around it. We have a anti-tracking pad here coming off the end of Technology Drive, and that's basically some large riprap in a bed on that soil so that any trucks that are coming off the property, if they have any mud on the wheels, it gets knocked off by that large riprap, and that doesn't get tracked into Technology Drive or then into Route 111. We also have some diversion berms, which are kind of depressions in the graded area that we're proposing to collect stormwater as it's coming down diagonally across the site, so that it then gets diverted into what we have is a stormwater quality swale, which is a swale that's made with riprap and stone to kind of get all that mud and debris out of that stormwater during construction. And then at the end of it, we have a catch basin that picks everything up that has a silt sack in it. And that catch basin is connected to a swirl concentrator, which is a water quality unit that takes water, collects all the floatables, any oils, any bottles, things of that nature, and garbage, collects it in there, traps it in there. And then it slows down the storm water so that any kind of suspended solids in the water get dropped down to the bottom. And then the only thing that gets conveyed into the Technology Drive drainage system is clean water. We also have a temporary sedimentation basin right here, which has been sized to collect the amount of water that a 10-year storm event would have on this whole parcel. And then that would then be collected there, and water would be allowed to settle down and become clarified, and then go into the Technology Drive system. Now, I keep saying the Technology Drive system because these three lots, including this one here in Monroe, were all designed to be collected in Technology Drive and then off into a retention pond that's behind 115 Technology Drive, which is if you go back, there's some woods there, but you'll see there's a big retention pond that kind of, let me see if I have the first slide, all right? So back here, there's a large retention pond that's 65,000 cubic feet, and that's to collect 100, 115 Technology Drive itself and this parcel when it's fully developed. We did the calculation in the midterm. So what we do, what the effect on the retention pond would be with just this phase of the project. Of course, we'll then analyze it again once we have a final user, and we'll run the numbers then again. So for the 50-year storm, with our system, our temporary system in place for this phase, we'll be reducing the 50-year storm by 8%, and then the 100-year storm will be a reduction of 2% of runoff from today's condition. And how we achieve that is by having that storage pond on our site, and then we have the one that's behind 115. And we're also kind of flattening the site, where the site right now is more grady, there's more pitch to it. So when you flatten out a site, you actually you slow down that water that allows to go into. I think that's pretty much it. I think everybody's kind of tired. I don't want to dwell on anything. So I'll just, if there's any questions, the details are here if you want to look at them. As to here's the swirl concentrator, here's the silt sacks and the diversion berms. If you have any specific questions on it, I'm sure you guys have them on there. I don't want to make it any longer. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Let's see if we have any questions from the commissioners. Start on my left.
Oh, boy. I may have missed it because I stepped off for a second. Is there any blasting associated with this?
My what?
Any blasting associated with this?
So we have done some borings. There is rock. Blasting is always like a question. So just because there's rock doesn't mean there's necessarily blasting. If it's weathered rock and people can rip it, there's no need for blasting. But if it's a harder stone, like harder rock, you would have to do some drills and caps and blast it to get rid of it. We did do some preliminary borings. I don't think we saw there was a whole lot of rock, but there's probably likelihood here in this where these couple of red areas are, where up on that knob. So the condition of the rock is really going to determine if there's going to be blasting or not, but it's possible.
Okay, no other questions?
May I say something? I don't have a question. I just want to supplement information we shared here. My name is Joseph Goldwyn. I work for the owner developer of the property. And with all respect to the comments, the gentleman who deserves an answer, she brought it up. The point he made at the Long Spring Hill Road, it's sort of.
Hey, sir, you have to talk to us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Along Spring Hill Road, there's, you're absolutely right. There's a brook that is quite substantial at times, and for that reason, we're not doing any work within probably 1,000 feet or so from the property. So all of the work is concentrated from the point where the cursor is now to the right. So we are not touching anything in the proximity of the brook. Thank you for your comment.
Nicole, did you have any?
I'm done, yeah. Going to Rob.
I know we talked about this in subcommittee, and we've covered a few of the questions just to bring them back out to light. And I guess there were some borings done and some blasting preliminary estimates. So 43,000 yards are coming out, what you said. Do you have any idea what the ratio is with stone? And how do you plan on processing that?
As we had talked about, we wouldn't be processing on site.
Just taking it into smaller pieces and trucking it out. Now, as far as, is there a tenant been identified?
No tenant has been identified. There are several irons in the fire, but not something that we can release because it's not for sure.
And the other, I don't know if there's any additional clarity as far as this potential sewer hookup.
It's anticipated that we're not going to have, at the moment, that we're not going to have a sewer hookup, and that, you know, what we're going to be limited to is putting a system on site for septic.
Right. And have you done any?
Have not done soil borings for that yet. I mean, that's some of the process of trying to remove some fill, because then we'll know better what we have and where we can do that. We have identified places we would like to put our system.
And that may also dictate the type of tenant you could bring in.
Correct. That absolutely does. Absolutely does. And that's why we, trying to limit the amount of septic that we're going to be generating.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
So through subcommittee, we asked you some questions, and without a crusher on site and that kind of stuff, it's a pretty simple, pretty straightforward excavation and fill permit. The blasting, though, like Nicole said, is definitely a concern. So I'm assuming if you do figure out you have to blast, you're going to take all proper precautions and letting neighbors know and.
The notification, the pre-blast surveys, all of those things will have to be done per the fire marshal and the state of Connecticut.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ambrosi.
Were all the neighbors notified
Yes.
on time?
Yes. Based on the regulation, yes.
On this, all these?
Yeah, I was confirmed tonight.
What?
It was confirmed tonight.
It was 100%, yeah. Okay.
Well, the applicant owns one building, and they're all his tenants.
Yeah, I know, but it was like, oh.
They're all his tenants. Well, most of them.
Anyway, how long is it going to take you to get this level?
We anticipate between 8 and 9 months to do the excavation.
So you wouldn't be against us put the time limit on it? That's why I'm asking you.
It will depend how much rock there's to be blasted. If the history will repeat itself when we build the first building on the bottom side, that's 100 Technology Drive, and the same terrain continued there. During construction of that building, we didn't have to do any blasting. We ripped it, we broke it with a hammer, we took all its material and put it on the last building where we have to raise the elevation about 20 feet. So we took this material, put it there, no blasting was involved. We did some borings, but I do not know.
So what I don't want it to turn into be a 5-year project.
Right, I understand.
So 2 years, year, what are you going to be done in 2 years?
It can be done in 2 years.
I think that we're trying to push toward, done it with another site now, we're trying to get this, like, I think from my thing, is to get it over with within 2 years. The other thing is I'm blasting, I think you should be blasting like from 10 until 3, no weekends. If you have to blast.
Yeah, we can set some parameters associated with that.
Set parameters.
If we have 2 shots a day, that would be not,
But
at the end of the day, beginning of the day.
Serious to the neighbors, and there's some neighbors around there and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's what I think we're gonna do.
But it's fair if you're saying that, if he says he needs 9 months and we say 2 years, I mean, that's very fair.
That's what I'm saying. I think we're gonna put a limit on it for 2 years and finish it. I think
That's quest.
Right. Don't necessarily need a blast.
Right.
You should find a van or something.
That might get a little.
At certain hours that you're gonna blast, because I don't think you should blast early in the morning. I think it should be like after 10, at 3 or whatever it is.
I think they have enough time that you can do.
You're not gonna have a question, you don't have to worry about that. So, okay, and then I think we're gonna try to put a 2-year time limit on it.
All excavation fill is 2
years, so I'm just saying that we're just gonna extend it.
not 2 years.
He could come back to us if he needs more time.
Yeah, maybe he has a good reason.
Maybe he ran into a hunk of gold and he wants to keep.
I have no questions. I'm installed for it.
What if he finds a rock of gold down there?
Please.
No, I just had questions about the material and blasting. That's all been answered.
Okay. I have lemonade breath.
All right, so, what little public remains, are there any?
There we go.
I'm in.
Members of the public, come ahead. Once again, within
This is in November.
Derek Talbot, 205 Wingate Circle, Monroe, representing my father, Edward Talbot, at 257 Spring Hill Road. 2 comments. I didn't hear any mention of any kind of a perimeter greenery barrier where 260 Spring Hill Road abuts the other Monroe properties. I don't know what the minimum distance is, but it probably should be like 35, 40 feet at a minimum. And the other comment was on blasting. Years ago, my father's house at 257, we abut the Trumbull Town line, and we're next door to 5 Cutler's Farm Road, which is where that concrete monstrosity storage building is. They had a blast. We're probably about 100 feet from where they were blasting, and my father was getting pelted with rocks from the blasting. We also had to dig up a drainage pipe, taking our water from our gutters down and out away from the house. So I think there should be some stringent notification to the neighbors about blasting, as well as emphasizing safety. I don't know how you do that. You might have it in your regulations, but I think that should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
We will, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public tonight? Any members of the public online that would like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll go back to the applicant.
Manny Silva from Rostizo again. First question is about any kind of buffer with the neighboring properties. So our property, after the excavation is done in general, especially to his property where he's talking, we're going to be lower. And we are trying to maintain a substantial amount of existing forest. I mean, there's an existing forest out here, and you can see here if I zoom in.
You can't see it.
Oh, sorry, Ray. Yep. I should have gave you the cue. Yeah, next slide, yeah. So you can see here, we have that right there. Our building setback is here, which is, I think is around, what, 50 feet? 100 feet? So it's 100 feet. So the cut goes into about half of that building setback. So there's about, here you have 100 feet of native forest that we're gonna leave in place. And then it goes down to about 50 feet and then opens up back up to about 100. And as you can see, we are gonna be substantially lower than this property here. So the trees and the existing greenery here is gonna be enough screen to, you're not gonna be able to see this here. And then the next question was the blasting survey. So it's state statute that we have to go to the fire marshal and apply for a blasting permit. And then that blaster has to have a license, has to have insurance, and then has to do a pre-blast survey within a certain radius of the blasting. So any property within the blast influence, they have to go and check their wells, their basements, because they don't want to be blasting and then someone come and say, my foundation's cracked, my well doesn't work. They want to be able to say beforehand, here's the pictures, here's what we saw before we went to blasting. And then if there is damage, then they do have to carry the insurance for it. So that concern is covered by state statute in the fire code. And the fire marshal is the administrator of that.
Thank you. Okay, so are we closing this hearing or are we leaving this open? What would you like to do?
Close the hearing, I don't see it.
All right, do we have anything else we need? If not, then I'll close this hearing. Thank you. All right, the last.
They probably, no, you can look at leave.
We're just gonna open and close it.
We have to do.
Have a good one. Hey, great. What happened here? Did you find a few for you or so? Yeah?
Deliberate.
It's a good number.
I can't be here anyway.
Yeah. I know.
It's 10:30.
Open, close.
You guys still around there?
But if you want to use the route, yeah.
It's 10:32? Yeah. So this is 2023-08, file number 16568, 555 Sand Hill Road. You have the,
SCP 2023-08, file 16568, 555 Fan Hill Road, special exception permit for 2 proposed warehouse additions to existing building totaling 15,500 plus or minus square foot, and site improvements located at 555 Fan Hill Road, assessor map 114, lot 004, Connecticut Precast Corp., owner Bowler Engineering and Land Surveying Representative.
I read the wrong thing. Shocker.
that's okay.
That's all right. It's all the same. Notice was published twice in Voices.
You did great. You did great. We're so proud of you.
You're so good. All right, the exhibits.
Mr. Chairman, 1, application to set plans. Number 2, Health Department. That is all.
All right, so we're going to continue this hearing until our next meeting.
That is correct.
Excellent. Do we have to open it up to the public?
No.
We do have the deliberation on the first hearing tonight that we closed, which is solely zone SDP number 2. So we're going to,
Wait.
well, we can direct Rick to draft approval with our conditions, yes.
We'll vote on it next meeting?
Yes. I just want to, you know.
Get a consensus. Want a consensus.
What are some of the issues that we wanted to do with that? If you recall, this is,
Yeah, that's normal. That's old school.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, there's no way they're going to get, I agree with Rob, they're not going to get access to Swiss Army's.
But I'd like to get on the other side.
they might get it on the other side.
Go into the other property and then get out. Is there a light to that other property that they'd be getting access to?
I don't think so.
No, so it's either way, it's, all that's going to do is make more people come out to their
But what were the concerns of the fire department and access to the buildings?
No, overall circulation, dilution of the cars.
Same.
Yeah. So we got to look at that.
Solution of what?
of the vehicles leaving different points.
So do we have to put in like these driveways now? We have to do something, right?
What we're doing here is allowing the SDD number 2 with the conditions that are in there. All right, there's no specific buildings, no specific parking, correct?
Correct, but I think what Leanne is saying, you want to put language that says the commission is expecting a detailed traffic circulation plan that meets the needs of that development.
That sounds good.
So my question is, if they don't get access to either one, then what?
They're going to modify the two entrances. Remember, there's one small entrance coming in and then the big one.
And then you think
You got to reevaluate that.
the police and the fire are going to be happier with with the modified plan?
It's a wait and see. So,
I mean, how much can you modify it? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't see it getting much better than what they had.
yeah.
If there were no road there, they'd have to do something.
Right.
You know, there was a
But I
building
think,
there.
I think maybe probably to get fire trucks in there and everything like that, I think they want probably more access or whatever.
Well,
right?
no, they weren't worried about that. It's specific
Just too much.
traffic flow for.
But, and the town engineer, where the two pads are for the restaurants, that's critical where their driveways go and exit. Because, you got a main entrance going in. You can't have a bad design, impactful situation.
You're gonna have to write some.
So we got to be creative in the overall circulation.
Okay, all right.
Has to be to the satisfaction of the commission.
Write something up for next time we're here.
Yep.
And then this one, we just talked about the expiration of the fill permit, for Spring Hill. So, I mean, I don't think this is going to turn into a quarry. The guy's got 2 other beautiful buildings there.
He doesn't want to crush her. He doesn't want anything.
No, he just wants to get it developed.
Yeah, we gotta have that voted by the neighbors. He's saying.
You already
notified the neighbors, dude. How many times you ask that? Rick's
What's the story with the notification?
Yeah, he complied with the,
No, I'm talking about during the blast.
Well, we don't know if there's going to be blasting.
blasting yet. We want them to notify
He was in subcommittee. He
No,
was
but
talking
Liam
about-
wants that in the event.
But it's gotta do that anyway by state statute.
Well, you want to still put it in.
No, because remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be texting
We're talking
or.
about extra
But it
notice.
does have to be notified.
Yes, they have to notify, but.
If there's a potential, please put in there if there's a potential for blasting neighbors.
Notify.
Text and.
Yeah.
You're going to send an AOL.
I think
We want a blasting plan.
It isn't, but if you don't put it in as part of our approval.
And he did indicate that he didn't want to do any blasting if he could get away with it.
No, that's what I'm saying,
and
but-
chip it away and all that stuff.
Again, we should really, or the subcommittee should really try to add that language into our blasting
Somehow.
approval, so we don't have to do this every time.
Blasting stuff.
The notification.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think that's a given.
It is very important.
Relevant today.
Listen,
You know, it
the
wasn't
problem
on the
with
first trip.
subcommittee is we're in and out.
Whose fault is that?
Mine.
Okay, cool. Let's move
All
on.
right, I think that's it. Let's move on to, where's the rest of these?
No minutes, Mr. Chairman.
No minutes?
What are we doing with this other thing, this 1029?
What?
This,
Oh, let's talk about that at the subcommittee.
okay.
And staff's recommending July 17th, Monday, 5:30. 2 Mondays from now,
We don't have another meeting now until August, right?
August 3rd.
Beautiful.
Oh, if I can
I'm
make.
going to miss you guys. Yeah.
Where you going?
No meeting on the 20th?
Germany.
What time? Reading that stuff.
5:30?
5:30. Same time every time, dude.
No, it's not. It changed the last time.
It's same time every time.
5:30.
5:05.
5:30?
Yes, sir.
Close it up, Mike, I gotta go.
10:30 PM.
Do we have any correspondence?
No, sir.
Right, we have no commissioner, no.
Motion to adjourn.
And commissioner reports.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, I have a motion. Second. Motion and a second, we are adjourned. It's 10:30